I'm sorry, Lu Niang. A moment later, she suddenly screamed. Then, she suddenly ran to Gu Dajiang and hugged him as if she was hugging Gu Yundong. She did not realize that there was anything wrong with hugging her husband in public. However, the completely awake Gu Dajiang, who had studied and knew etiquette very well, also didn't care at all. He hugged his wife tightly. Unlike the joy she felt when she hugged Gu Yundong just now, Madame Yang could not help but cry. Dajiang, it's Dajiang, Dajiang, Gu Dajiang's voice choked. It's me, Lu Niang. I'm sorry for making you wait so long. I'm sorry. Dajiang, don't go. Don't go. Yes, I'm not leaving. I'll be with you guys from now on. Our family will never be separated again. Madame Yang started to cry again. Gu Dajiang patted her back and coaxed her softly. He smiled patiently with a doting gaze. The people around them were dumbfounded and sighed in their hearts. It turned out that this was the old master that Madame, Miss, and young master had been looking for. No wonder they kept saying that old master was a very gentle person. Aunt Ku heaved a sigh of relief. In fact, she had wondered if this Gu Dajiang, whom she had never seen, had long forgotten about his wife and children and remarried and had children elsewhere. After all, Madame Yang's situation was special. At this age, very few people would be willing to cherish a wife who knew nothing like a child. Moreover, after the disaster, who knew if they were still alive? It was normal for a man like him, who was educated and capable, to get married and have children. She had never said these words to Gu Yundong. At that time, she had thought that it would be difficult to find Gu Dajiang in this world, so she would let them keep this wish in their hearts. She did not expect to see him now and realize that she had been too narrow-minded. Aunt Ku heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, she was no longer worried. She gave Xianxia and the others a look and left the space for the family to reunite. They went to the kitchen to prepare delicious food to welcome them. Tong Shuitao did her best to introduce Shui Rong, who was also unfamiliar with the place, and even helped him tidy up a room. Madame Yang finally stopped crying, but she still refused to let go of Gu Dajiang. She held his hand tightly, as if she was afraid that he would disappear again. Gu Yundong laughed and shook her head. Then she looked at Gu Yunka, who was still standing by his leg and looking at them curiously. She squatted down and said softly, "Kiki, haven't you always been curious about what Daddy looks like?" "This is Daddy." The little girl was confused. She actually had no impression of Gu Dajiang at all. It was only because her brother often mentioned her father to her that she knew of his existence. Her heart was filled with yearning and anticipation. However, now that she had really seen him, she did not dare to go forward. Gu Dajiang also squatted down and looked into the little girl's eyes. "Kiki, Dad. Would you like to come over and let Dad hug you?" Gu Yunka was a little hesitant. Seeing his expectant gaze, she shifted her feet. Seeing this, Gu Dajiang suddenly took out a straw doll from behind him. "Father made this. Can he give it to you?" Powerful father. The little girl's eyes lit up. "Xiaotu. Do you like it?" She nodded. "I like it so much." Gu Yunka also had playmates in the village. Their father would weave beautiful grass mantises and crickets for them. She was very envious, but her father was not by her side, so Father Tong made it up for her. It was big and beautiful. But he was not her father. It was different. Now that her father was in front of her, the little rabbit that he had woven for her was unique. Others did not know how to do it, but her father did. The little girl could not help but puff out her chest proudly. She looked up at Gu Yundong, who gave her a small push. "Go." She immediately ran to Gu Dajiang, but she didn't dare to hug him. Gu Dajiang stuffed the straw bunny into her hand and picked the little girl up. She's quite heavy." He thought back to when he was in the old Gu family. The young lady was thin and small, as if she would break if he was not careful. Gu Yundong went over and held Madame Yang's hand. "Father, let's go in and talk." "Sure, okay." Gu Yundong brought him to his and Madame Yang's room. Looking at the clean and warm room, he could not help but tear up. This was their home, their own house. Shui Rong quietly came over and moved Gu Dajiang's luggage out of the carriage. Madame Yang opened the box in a hurry and tidied up his things herself. She had a bright smile on her face that Gu Yundong had never seen before. Perhaps she was still very ignorant and didn't know the feelings of an adult, but her reliance and importance on Gu Dajiang were real. The box contained the things they had bought along the way, as well as pens, ink, paper, and inkstones. Madame Yang recognized all of them and placed them on the desk. There were also his clothes. They were folded one piece after another and placed in the wardrobe. Gu Yundong took a glance and saw that Gu Yong's clothes were still inside. After some thought, he went over and took out the small clothes. Then, she said to Gu Dajiang, "Kiki will sleep with me first. Father, you can have a good chat with mother tonight." Gu Dajiang was speechless. He glared at Gu Yundong and coughed lightly. "It's fine for Kiki to sleep with us." Before he could finish speaking, he heard the little girl in his arms immediately say, "I want to sleep with eldest sister. I want to sleep with eldest sister." After shouting, she noticed Gu Dajiang's hurtful expression and couldn't bear to see him like this. She quickly whispered into his ear, "Father, I just," she didn't know what to say. But this was the first time Gu Dajiang heard Gu Yunka call her father. He felt a little smug. He did not need her to give him a reason and found it for her. "Father knows that you haven't seen eldest sister for many days and there's a lot of stuff that you want to tell her, right?" The little girl immediately nodded. Yes. Gu Yundong clicked her tongue. Just as she was about to complain, Tong Shuetao's voice came from the door. "Miss, young master is back." As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Yunshu had already run over. "Is my big sister back? Big sister, where are you?" Behind him was Bian Yuanzhi's voice. "Yunshu, wait for me." Gu Yunshu could not wait any longer. She ran to Madame Yang's room and stepped into the door frame. He did not see Gu Yundong standing in the shade. The first person he saw was a tall man carrying Gu Yunka over. A whole family. Gu Yunshu looked up in a daze. He wanted to see clearly, but the man had already squatted down and was at eye level with him. The next moment, Gu Yunshu's tears suddenly fell. His voice was a little illusory. "Father, it's me, Yunshu. Father is back." The book in Gu Yunshu's hand fell to the ground. He was stunned. He carefully reached out to touch Gu Dajiang's face and asked again uncertainly, "Father? I'm here." Gu Dajiang pulled him into his arms and stroked his small head. "It's been hard on Yunshu during this period of time. Your eldest sister already said that you're a small man. You're daddy's pride." At that moment, all of Gu Yunshu's bittersweet emotions surged. He hugged Gu Dajiang's neck. "Father, it's really father. It's a living father. You're warm." He cried as he spoke, out of breath. "It's not hard on me. Big sister is the one who's done all the work. I'm a man. I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to see my father." Boo-hoo, Gu Dajiang's heart ached. The little guy was young, but he always wanted to support his family. If Yundong hadn't suddenly grown up, he would have treated the entire family as his own responsibility. He held his son and his daughter on either side. Seeing that his son could not stop crying and his daughter was about to cry, he quickly reached out and patted Gu Yunshu's shoulder. "Don't cry anymore. Look at Kiki, it was too late." Emotions were the most infectious things, especially for children. Seeing her beloved brother cry so aggrievedly, the little girl could not help but cry. Gu Dajiang was helpless. He might as well let them vent as much as they wanted. He only hugged the two children tightly, as if they were his most precious treasures. When he looked up, she happened to see Bian Yuanzhi standing not far away, wiping his eyes in a daze. His eyes were filled with envy and joy. he suddenly thought of Bian Mulan and his heart ached. He smiled at Bian Yuanzhi and said, "You don't remember me anymore. Come, let me hug you." Bian Yuanzhi paused for a moment and instantly pounced into his arms. Eldest uncle, Gu Dajiang carried the 3 crying children, but his heart was sore and swollen. His heart ached, but he was also satisfied. On the other hand, Madame Yang, who was tidying up, quickly ran over and hugged Gu Dajiang from behind. Then, they cried together. Only Gu Yundong could not help but touch her forehead. She looked at the large-scale crying scene and sighed. After a while, she finally walked forward with tears in her eyes. "All right, stop crying. Calm down and drink some water." Only then did they leave Gu Dajiang's arms and look at Gu Yundong. Gu Yunshu smiled through his tears again. "Eldest sister, did you bring father back?" "That's right. Isn't big sister very good?" "Yes, yes. You're amazing." The little ones nodded vigorously. The group of people sat on the bed. Unlike Madame Yang and Gu Yunka, Gu Yunshu had a stomach full of questions. He also had many things to tell his father and elder sister. Gu Dajiang was very patient as he recounted what had happened. It was as if time was not time when the family reunited. It was only when Tong Shuitao came over and said that dinner was ready that everyone felt that the sky was about to turn dark. There was no one else in the dining room. Aunt Ku and the rest knew better than to disturb them. After dinner, Gu Yundong asked softly, "Where's Xiao Qingyuan? Why haven't I seen him?" Stranger based on Gu Yundong's understanding, Xiao Qingyuan would definitely come here as soon as he knew that she was back. If he had known that Gu Dajiang was coming back, he wouldn't have delayed. However, not only did he not come, but even Ah Mao and Ah Go were not here. Aunt Ku said, "He went deep into the mountains yesterday and hasn't returned yet." Into the mountains? Yeah. On the other side, Gu Dajiang was calling her. "Yundong, where is that only copy?" Gu Yundong quickly responded, turned around, and ran back. She also took out that only copy from her spatial storage. This thing was valuable and could not be casually placed in a box. What if it was lost? After obtaining the only copy, Gu Dajiang cherished it and placed it in the bookcase in the room. This bookcase was huge. He wanted to fill it up slowly in the future. Yunka, Yunshu, and Yuanzhi were still in this room. The 3 little guys were very happy to be reunited, as if they had endless things to say. Gu Yundong saw that it was getting late. The 3 of them had a fixed sleeping time, especially Yunshu and Yuanzhi. They had to wake up early the next morning to go to school. She chased the few people back to their rooms and carried Gu Yunka away. "Father, rest well. If there are any problems, we'll talk about it tomorrow." "Yeah." Gu Dajiang closed the door and held Madame Yang's hand. He smiled gently. "Mother Lu, are you tired?" Madame Yang shook her head vigorously. "I'm happy. I'm so happy." "Me too." He put his arms around her gently and sighed with satisfaction. His voice was so soft it was almost inaudible. "I'm so happy I'm going crazy." On the other side, although Yunshu and Yuanzhi had also returned to the house, they could not fall asleep no matter what. They hid under the blanket and whispered. Obviously, they were all very excited. Gu Yundong was the calmest. She had already passed the initial ecstasy. Kiki, on the other hand, had passed her biological clock and couldn't take it anymore. Before she returned to her room, she kept yawning. However, the little girl had been holding on. She buried her head next to Gu Yundong's head. "Eldest sister, I'm not sleeping. I'm talking to eldest sister. There are so many things to say. I saved them up." Gu Yundong patted the little girl's head. "Let's talk tomorrow, okay? Go to sleep now. I'll forget tomorrow. I'm not going to sleep." Her head bobbed up and down. She clearly looked extremely sleepy. Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. She lay beside her and covered her with a small blanket. Then eldest sister will tell you a story. As expected, the young lady successfully changed the topic. Okay. In the past, there was a mountain with a temple on it. There were 3 monks living in the temple. Before she could finish speaking, the breathing beside her calmed down and the little girl fell asleep. Yundong smiled and fell asleep with the girl in her arms. The next day, other than her, everyone else woke up late. She let go of Young's small body. Yes, when the girl was sleeping with her sister, her sleeping posture was still very proper. How come when she was sleeping with Yunshu, her head would end up with his feet? Yundong shook her head and went out to wash up. Dajiang had yet to get up. Yundong wanted to take this opportunity to go next door and see how the Xiao family was doing. She didn't even eat breakfast. She just greeted Aunt Ku and hurried back to the Xiao family. However, just as she stepped out of the door, she saw an unfamiliar person standing there. When he saw her, his eyes immediately lit up and he approached her excitedly. He seemed to be waiting for her. Trying to enter the Gu family's workshop, that person's eyes lit up when he saw Yundong. Miss Gu, you're back? You are. Yundong took a closer look but still could not remember who he was. The man had already walked in front of her. He exhaled slightly and introduced himself. Sister Gu, Chen Jincai. Chen Jincai? She seemed to have heard this name somewhere before. It was somewhat familiar. However, this guy was indeed a stranger. He should be from this village, right? Seeing her confused look, Chen Ji knew that she did not remember who he was. He hurriedly added, My father is Chen Liang. I'm the eldest son of the Chen family. Yundong was enlightened by his explanation. So it was him. Aunt Ku had once told him that Chen Jincai had lost his job in town, so he brought his wife and children back to the Chen family. His life didn't seem to be very good. However, Yundong had a good impression of Chen Liang and Chen Jinbao. In addition, Niu Dan and Yunshu were good friends, so she was very friendly to the Chen family. So it's Brother Chen. Yundong smiled. Brother Chen, what's the matter? Come, let's talk inside. It's hot here. Chen Jincai shook his head and refused to enter. He looked a little troubled and hesitant. Yundong raised her eyebrows. After a while, the man said, Well, Sister Gu, I did come here today for something. It's just that I don't have much to do at home. Is Sister Gu's workshop short of people? Can I go to work? Yundong was stunned. She really did not expect him to come over for this. She lowered her eyes. He came alone in the morning and refused to enter. All kinds of signs indicated that Chen Liang definitely did not know that he wanted to work in the Gu family's workshop. Yundong was silent for a while. Her voice became distant. Brother Chen, the workshop is not short of people now. I heard that Brother Chen went home a few months ago. Why didn't you come when the workshop was recruiting last time? Chen Jin choked and was a little embarrassed. Of course, he knew that the matter of the Gu family's workshop recruiting people had caused an uproar. Didn't his second brother come back in a hurry and say that he had already been picked because he had done short-term work before? At that time, he had scoffed. Was it worth being so happy to be a long-term worker in a small workshop in the village? If he did it, he would at least be a manager. What was the point of being a long-term worker? Chen Jincai was also working in a workshop when he was in town. He was also a small manager. Although there were only 3 or 4 people under him, he was still a manager, right? Besides, that was a workshop in town. He could manage 3 or 4 there. Wouldn't he be able to manage 30 or 40 in the village? He was absolutely unwilling to do long-term work. At first, he thought that if the workshop wanted to recruit people, it would recruit both long-term workers and managers, right? He would go when they recruited managers later. With his experience, his father's status, and the relationship between the Chen family and the Gu family, it would definitely not be a problem. Unexpectedly, the Gu family directly let a servant be the manager. Chen Jincai almost spat out a mouthful of blood. His wife also blamed him. She said that he was still putting on airs at this time. Especially when he saw that his second brother was getting better and better, and he could only follow his father in the field. However, it had been more than 10 years since he had done such work. It was difficult for him to swing a hoe. His wife also complained every day and felt extremely aggrieved. Jincai thought that he still had to come to the Gu family to see if they could arrange a job for him. Unexpectedly, Yundong left. Secret about your mother. Chen felt that the heavens were playing with him. Nothing had gone smoothly for the entire year. However, in the following days, he had really suffered enough. His father was really ruthless. Every morning, his father would wake him up to work. When he returned home at night, he would collapse. Especially when he saw his second brother, who was still energetic when he arrived home. It was not only his physical spirit, but also his heart. No matter how tired his second brother was, the man's body still seemed to have endless energy. Moreover, he had money on hand and could buy whatever he wanted. He often added vegetables to the family, causing his parents to value him more. For the first time, Chen Jinbao was envious of Chen Jinbao. He had also come to look for Tongan, but the other party said that Miss was not around and he could not make the decision. He asked him to look for Xiao Qingyuan. Xiao Qingyuan? Chen Jin did not dare to. He could only continue to stay at home and work. When he came back from the fields yesterday, he heard the villagers say that Yundong was back. He immediately perked up and came here early in the morning to wait. However, things did not go as smoothly as he had imagined. Yundong saw his angry expression and smiled. Brother Chen, you can wait a little longer. When the workshop recruits new workers, you can come over and give it a try. In business, Yundong would not break her principles just because she had a friendship with the Chen family. She would not randomly stuff people into the workshop. After all, the Chen family was not the only family that she was on good terms with. The Zheng family was also close to her. He could not just let everyone come in. If there's nothing else, Brother Chen, I'll go back first. Yundong nodded at him and turned to leave. Chen Jincai suddenly took a step forward. Wait. Yundong paused. Is there anything else, Brother Chen? Chen Jin let out 2 breaths and tugged with his hands. A trace of fierceness flashed in his eyes. What if I tell you a secret about your family in exchange? Can't you make an exception? Yundong was really surprised this time. Her family's secret? What secret? Chen Jin felt a little more confident. I can only tell you if you agree. Yundong shook her head. I can only consider agreeing if you tell me first. After all, I don't know if you're lying to me. Chen Jincai frowned. I have no reason to lie to you. Then I have to consider how important this secret is. Is it worth it for me to make an exception? Yundong spread his hands. If you randomly find a secret that isn't even considered a secret, wouldn't I be at a disadvantage? Chen Jin felt that this girl was too difficult to deal with. She was not easy to talk to at all. However, he was unwilling to give in and insisted that she agree to his request first. Yundong was quite annoyed that others would use such a thing to threaten her. It seems like you don't plan to say anything. In that case, suit yourself. Seeing that she was about to leave again, Chen Jincai was a little anxious. What if this secret is about your mother? Yundong was stunned. About her mother? Yundong was a little concerned. But what could Chen Jincai know about her mother? Could it be that something had happened to her mother while she was away? How is it? Do you want to hear it? Yundong narrowed her eyes. All right, I promise you. If what you say is true, they'll let you enter the workshop. Chen Jincai could not help but reveal a trace of joy on his face. He was slightly excited. However, he quickly suppressed his excitement. He looked at Yundong and added, You must swear to God. Someone likes Madame Yang swear my ass. You're pushing your luck. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and began to get impatient. I just want a guarantee. Jincai had no choice. Previously, when he worked in that workshop, he had been tricked once. The person in front of him was a little girl who looked very kind. However, for her to have a workshop and a shop at such a young age, she must not be simple. He was also afraid that she would go back on her word. However, Gu Yundong did not intend to continue fooling around with him. If you don't want to say it, then don't. You're hemming and hawing. I don't think you know anything. In that case, let's not waste each other's time. After a pause, she sneered and added, moreover, how long do you think you can do this kind of work that you obtained by threatening me? What path can you have in the future? Even if I recruit you now, I can still chase you away in a few days. With that, Gu Yundong did not look at him again. She had to go back and ask Aunt Ku if anything had happened to her mother while she was away. Could it be that without Jincai, she would not know? Aunt Ku had not mentioned anything unusual to her since she came back. It was probably not a big deal. Jincai was stunned. Didn't they say that the Gu girl cared about her family the most? Why was she so indifferent after hearing about her mother? Could it be that she was not as patient as she seemed on the surface, and she was done taking care of the abnormal Madame Yang? Seeing that Gu Yundong was about to step into the door, Jin suddenly reacted. He quickly took a few steps forward and shouted anxiously at her back, all right, I'll tell you. Gu Yundong was surprised and turned her head slightly. Huh? Jincai gritted his teeth. This time, he did not delay anymore and said directly, someone has taken a fancy to your family's assets, so they hired someone to get close to your mother. When that person and your mother develop feelings for each other, they will marry. At that time, they will naturally get the Gu family's workshop, shop, and fruit forest. You should watch your mother. Although all of this belonged to Gu Yundong now, as long as someone married Madame Yang, he would be Gu Yundong's stepfather. Gu Yundong was going to get married sooner or later. When the time came, wouldn't the Gu family's assets still be at home? Gu Yundong was not the only one who was stunned. Even Father Tong's eyebrows twitched. Who is it? Gu Yundong's voice sank and her face was filled with anger. Great, someone actually had designs on her mother. Had they forgotten what she had said and done in the past? Jincai turned his head. He looked like he knew, but he was unwilling to say it. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and changed the question. Then, who was the man who approached my mother? This time, Jin did not remain silent, but I didn't hear it clearly. I only know that the other party has already met your mother. My house is far away and am not familiar with this place. I don't know who specially spoke to your mother and can't help you. Anyway, when your mother goes out in the future, get someone to accompany her. Anyway, you have a few servants. His last words were still a little sour. After saying that, it was unknown if he was angry with her or himself. He snorted heavily and turned to leave. Gu Yundong had already suppressed her anger. Seeing his expression, she asked, why did you suddenly tell me? This time, I didn't promise you that you could enter the workshop. Someone comes frequently, Jincai sneered. I admit that I'm a person with low standards and no ability. I'm prideful and self-righteous, and I like to play some tricks. But I'm not heartless. I've used such despicable methods. It's fine if someone's greedy for other people's family assets, but bullying is silly, bullying a woman who's like a child. What he didn't say was that after the other party snatched the Gu family's assets, he would chase all the children out and divorce Madame Yang. If this wasn't crazy, what was? Of course, Gu Yundong could also guess this. However, what surprised her at this moment was that Jincai had such an awareness. Moreover, his understanding of himself was very clear. However, since he knew his shortcomings so well, why didn't he change them? You don't have to look at me like that. I'm a father after all. At least in front of my son, I still have a clear conscience. Jincai turned around and left after saying that. His footsteps were hurried, as if he regretted saying so much. Gu Yundong looked at his back from afar but did not speak for a long time. Father Tong, who had also heard the entire process, asked softly, "Miss, what should we do about this?" "Nothing." Gu Yundong sneered. "My father is here. He will protect my mother. I will see who is so shameless as to approach my mother. When the time comes, they won't even know how they died." Father Tong nodded heavily. "That's right. With old master around, what's there to be afraid of? Miss, don't worry. I'll guard the courtyard door well and see who passes." Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly paused and said awkwardly, "Miss, I suddenly remembered that someone seems to come often." "Who is it?" Gu Yundong suddenly became energetic. He already had a suspect. Father Tong had a strange expression on his face. It's young Master Lu." Gu Yundong was speechless. What was he thinking? "Don't worry, young Master Lu doesn't care about our family's assets." Gu Yundong rolled her eyes. "Besides, he comes to freeload most of the time, right?" Father Tong thought about it and felt that it made sense. Every time young Master Lu came here, he would take some canned food and fruits with him before leaving. Although he had given them money, he was definitely getting in through the back door. Gu Yundong glanced at the courtyard. Her parents did not seem to be up yet, so she simply turned around and went to the Xiao family. Xiao Qingyuan was indeed not around. Ah Mao and the other three followed him. There was only an old woman who had just been bought cleaning the courtyard. When she saw Gu Yundong coming over, she hurriedly brought her a chair and was about to pour tea. Gu Yundong stopped her. "There's no need to trouble yourself. I'll just take a look." After a few months, the Xiao house did not change much. It was just that there were more things and people. As expected, Mao and the rest were having a good time here. It was quite helpful. After watching for a while and asking the old woman a few more questions, Gu Yundong walked out of the Xiao house. Unexpectedly, when she passed by the Xing family's door, she suddenly heard a familiar voice. Gu Yundong turned around and walked towards the Xing family. She knocked on the door of the courtyard and Dong Xiulan came over after a while. Seeing that it was her, she was immediately delighted. "Yundong, you're here? Hey, I was just thinking of going over to see you. How was it? Did your trip go smoothly? Honey, don't stand at the door and talk. Invite Yundong in." Uncle Zheng's energetic voice came from inside the door. "Who does he like?" Dong Xiulan immediately reacted and slapped her forehead. Yes. Look at me. Yundong, come in and sit for a while." Gu Yundong followed him in and saw Uncle Zheng sitting in the courtyard. And the man sitting opposite Uncle Zheng. The voice she felt familiar with just now was from him. "Uncle Jiang is here too." Gu Yundong smiled at Jiang Yongkang. Dong Xiulan moved a stool for her to sit on and said, "Brother Jiang brought your Uncle Zheng back. Your Uncle Zheng just can't stay at home. His leg just recovered not long ago, and he couldn't sit still. He insisted on going to the fields early in the morning to take a look. In the end, he slipped and fell. Fortunately, Brother Jiang saw him and sent him back." Gu Yundong shifted her gaze to Zheng Hu's leg. "Uncle Zheng's injuries have completely healed, right?" "Yes, when you left back then, he could already walk. He just cannot stand for too long and must rest once in a while when he walks. However, he couldn't stay idle and even ran into the ground. He must have suffered this time, right?" Dong Xiulan glared at Zheng Hu. Zheng Hu rubbed his head and hurriedly turned to talk to Jiang Yongkang. Gu Yundong took a look at the Zheng family. The Zheng family had changed a lot recently. The chair under them had been replaced. Gu Yundong felt a sense of accomplishment when she saw that the family that had helped her in the past was getting better and better. On the other side, Jiang Yongkang left without saying anything. As soon as he left, Gu Yundong asked curiously, "Didn't Uncle Jiang recover from his illness long ago? Why is he still in the village and hasn't returned to town?" Because of what he had done to Shinsidian previously, Gu Yundong tried her best to keep a distance from Jiang Yongkang. Dong Xiulan replied as she picked the vegetables. He said that he went back, but after staying for 2 days, he was uncomfortable because his grandson started crying in the middle of the night again. Anyway, he likes Yongfu village. It doesn't matter if he stays for a few more days. He'll go back when his grandson is older and won't cry so badly. Is that so? Gu Yundong felt that this reason was not very valid. Dong Xiulan nodded. Soon, her attention was no longer on Jiang Yongkang. By the way, Yundong, what do you think about me sending Xingjia to school? Xingjia was 10 years old. Dong Xiulan and Jianghu felt that their family situation was better now. They wanted to grit their teeth and send him to school. It was good to recognize a few words. Gu Yundong agreed. Of course. Sigh, I'm just worried about which school to send him to, Dong Xiulan said. There are only 2 schools in town. One requires a lot of money. There's the other school. Last time, you said that the teacher didn't allow students to work in the fields, so I can't send him over. The county city is too far, and the tuition fees are high. Gu Yundong thought for a moment. Uncle and aunt, do you want Xingjia to take the imperial examination? No, it won't be easy. Our family isn't that well off. Besides, our 2 children aren't as good at studying as Yunshu. We want to send them to learn some calligraphy so that they can easily find jobs in the future. Unlike us, who can't read and can only do the hard labor. Aunt, you don't have to be so self-deprecating. How about this? I'll ask around for you and discuss it with you later. Dong Xiulan and her husband immediately became happy. Hey, then, we'll have to trouble you, Yundong. It's not troublesome. Auntie, go ahead. I'll go back first. My parents should be anxious if they can't find me. Alright. Don't be hasty. After Gu Yundong left, Dong Xiulan exclaimed, did she just say father and mother? Where did she get a father? When Gu Yundong walked out of the Zheng family's door, she suddenly stopped and narrowed her eyes. Jiang Yongkang? Back then, did he really fancy Shinsidian? Instigator. As Gu Yundong walked back, she could not help but think carefully. Indeed, Shinsidian was younger and more capable than her mother, and she did not have the temperament of a child like her mother. However, Madame Yang was actually very good-looking. Her appearance could crush a large number of people. Coupled with the Gu family's current wealth, it was not strange for them to target her. She recalled how Jiang Yongkang had helped Shinsidian twice. Madame Yang was also there. Moreover, after his so-called scheme of saving the damsel in distress was exposed, he directly admitted that he had taken a fancy to Shinsidian and agreed not to meet her. However, although he could not see Shinsidian, he did not say that he could not get close to Madame Yang. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly. The moment she stepped through the door, she recalled Chen Jincai's expression. Why didn't Chen Jincai say who instigated it? Firstly, he did not dare to say it. Secondly, he could not say it. He was defending the other party. Who was worthy of his protection? Gu Yundong suddenly thought of Madame Fang and her daughter. Yes, wasn't Jiang Yongkang living in Madame Fang and her daughter's house now? Xiulan married into the town, and Jiang Yongkang happened to be from the town. Chen Jincai wanted to say something but hesitated. He refused to say who had designs on her family, and Madame Fang happened to be his second aunt. Everything seemed to be right. Yundong, where did you go so early in the morning? Gu Yundong was stunned. When she came back to her senses, she saw Aunt Ku standing in front of her. She thought for a while and told her what happened just now. In the end, she asked, when I wasn't around, did Jiang Yongkang meet my mother? Aunt Ku looked surprised, but after thinking about it carefully, she felt that it made sense. Her expression instantly became a little ugly. She had promised Yundong to take good care of her mother and younger siblings while she was away. In the end, people with ulterior motives kept approaching her, but she did not discover it in time. No, she had discovered it, but she had gone in the wrong direction. She thought that Jiang Yangkang's target was Shensidian. A few times, yes. Gu Yundong saw Aunt Kes' expression and knew that she was blaming herself. She hurriedly said, "Actually, this is just my guess. Perhaps it's not the case. Aunt, don't think too much. It's been hard on you these few days when I wasn't around." Aunt Ke glared at her and snorted before turning to leave. Gu Yundong was helpless. She was still so proud. She shook her head and walked towards her parents' room. It was already so late. The two of them should be up, right? They had indeed got up. The door was half open. Gu Yundong tilted her head slightly and looked inside. She saw her mother sitting in front of the dressing table with a smile on her face. Her father stood behind her mother and combed her mother's hair, his eyes doting and gentle. Her mother held an eyebrow pencil in her hand and said happily, "Yundong bought this for me, but I don't know how to draw. It's always very ugly. Aunt Ke helped me draw it and said that I look good." Gu Dajiang took the eyebrow pencil. "I'll draw it for you in the future." He had never used an eyebrow pencil before. In the past, the Gu family wouldn't have afforded such a thing. However, he was a scholar after all. It shouldn't be difficult for him to draw a few more times. And this rouge, it smells good too. Gu Dajiang leaned over. "Yes, this color is good. It suits you. Apply it for me later." "Okay." Gu Yundong was speechless. Damn it, she was fed dog food so early in the morning. "Father, let me tell you. You're making me think of my brother Xiao. Don't regret it." However, Gu Yundong was happy to see Gu Dajiang and Madame Yang like this. An idea suddenly popped up in her mind. Perhaps it could confirm her guess. "Should go around in the village, why are you standing at the door?" Gu Dajiang's awkward voice came from inside. It was only then that he saw his daughter standing at the door and felt a little embarrassed. But his hand was still holding the eyebrow pencil and his other hand was on Madame Yang's shoulder. He only used his eyes to signal Gu Yundong to leave quickly. "Father, Mother, come out for breakfast first." Seriously, it was fine if they woke up late, but they were still dilly-dallying. She looked down on them. She turned around and left. She quickly returned to her room and saw Gu Yunke sitting on the bed in a daze. Her hair was standing up on her head. Her eyes were filled with confusion, as if she had not realized where she was. When she saw Gu Yundong enter, her eyes widened and she got up from the bed. Eldest sister, you're really back." Gu Yundong went over to hug the little girl. "Why? Do you still think you're dreaming?" She brought her clothes and helped her put them on. The little girl shook her head and did it herself. She quickly tidied herself up. Yunshu and Yuanzhi also got up. After everyone sat down at the dining table, Gu Dajiang arrived late with Madame Yang. It was just that on Madame Yang's face. Sure enough, her father's skills needed to be improved. Gu Yundong was probably the only one who could not stop sighing. The other three children were eating happily and did not notice the small actions between their parents. Gu Yunshu was the happiest when the family was reunited. After breakfast, he said to Gu Yundong, "Eldest sister, can I take leave today and not go to school? You and father just came back. I have a lot to say." Before Gu Yundong could answer, Gu Dajiang frowned and said in disagreement, "How can you not go to school? Studying is important. How many people have studied hard for many years without daring to slack off? It's understandable that you're happy that your eldest sister and I are back, but you can't forget your studies." Gu Yunshu was a little disappointed, but he also understood that what his father said made sense. He took a sip of water, pouted, and said disappointedly, Okay. When Gu Dajiang saw this, he thought for a moment and said, "How about this? I'll send you to school. I haven't seen your teacher yet. It's only right for me to visit him." Gu Yunshu was elated, but soon, Gu Yundong, who was beside him, poured a bucket of cold water on him. She had also finished eating. She wiped her mouth and said calmly, "There's no hurry to visit the teacher. It's fine to go another day." Gu Yundong looked at Gu Dajiang. "Father, you've just returned. It's better to go to the village chief's house first and let everyone in the village know that you're back so that there won't be any misunderstandings." Misunderstandings? What misunderstandings? But Gu Dajiang felt that what she said made sense. He had heard Gu Yundong talk about the situation in Yongfu village. He knew that the village chief here was completely different from the one in Gu village. He seemed to have taken good care of Gu Dajiang's family. Indeed, as the father of the children and as the patriarch in the family, he should pay a visit to the village chief's house. Hence, Gu Dajiang nodded. "You're right. Let's go over after dinner." As he spoke, he turned his head and stroked Gu Yunshu's head. "Yunshu, go to school with Yuanzhi today. I'll accompany you another day, okay?" Gu Yunshu had no objections to eldest sister's words. He immediately nodded. All right. Father, you're right to listen to eldest sister. I'll leave first." After saying that, he called Bian Yuanzhi and the two of them took their school bags and walked out of the door. Gu Dajiang's hand was still in midair, and his expression froze for a moment. Mutual knowledge. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh, but she held it in. After breakfast, Gu Yundong introduced the family to Gu Dajiang. Yesterday, they were so excited that almost the entire family was talking. They had never officially introduced Aunt Ku and the others. Now that they had calmed down, everyone gathered together. Gu Dajiang was grateful to Aunt Ku. He thanked her solemnly. "I heard from Yundong that when they just came to the Shuana prefecture and were homeless, they only had a place to stay because of your care. I'm deeply grateful for your kindness to my wife and children." "Thank you." Aunt Ku could still teach Gu Yundong, a junior, a few words, but to the knowledgeable and loyal Gu Dajiang, she was a little humble. "Don't say that. I'm lonely living alone. It's more lively with them accompanying me." Gu Dajiang met Xianxia again. Gu Yundong did not hide Xianxia's background from him. Gu Dajiang knew that it wasn't easy for her, so he told her to stay in peace. Their family was easy to get along with. Then, it was the Tong family's turn. After seeing all the 6 people, Gu Dajiang's mouth couldn't help but twitch. So there were actually so many servants in his house? 2 days ago, Yundong had told him that there were not many servants in the family, and she needed to buy more. He looked at Gu Yundong with a complicated gaze. Gu Yundong blinked. "Father, is there a problem?" "No." In the end, it was Shui Rong. Shui Rong would follow Gu Dajiang in the future and help run errands. He had a calm personality and had stayed in a place like the Xian family for a few years. He was the most suitable person. After the family officially met, Gu Dajiang planned to take a walk at the village chief's house. Just as he was about to leave with the gift box they had bought from the county yesterday, he was stopped by Gu Yundong. He looked surprised. "What's wrong? Didn't you say you wanted to go to the village chief's house first?" "Yes, but you're going to dress like this?" Gu Dajiang looked down at his clothes. "Aren't they pretty good? They're clean and neat." They were neither too rich nor too sloppy. It looked like he was going to the village chief's house to chat as a guest. There was no sense of distance. Gu Yundong shook her head. No. She sized Gu Dajiang up for a while before turning around and running towards the main house. "Wait for me." As she spoke, she opened the wardrobe and found a new set of long gowns. She had bought this set of clothes at Wanqing Prefecture. Before he came back, Gu Yundong had bought many things for Gu Dajiang. She unfolded her clothes and looked at them. She nodded, indicating that she was very satisfied. "Dad, wear this." Gu Dajiang looked at her with an expression that said, "What's wrong with my daughter? Why does she care so much about my appearance?" Could it be that there was really something wrong with his clothes? He could not help but look down again. In the end, under Gu Yundong's insistence, he changed. The new clothes could not be considered extravagant, but the workmanship was excellent. Most importantly, the new clothes made him look especially elegant. Even Madame Yang's eyes lit up. Gu Yundong smiled. All right, let's go. Gu Dajiang only felt that she was very strange. He wanted to ask, but it was getting late. If he delayed any longer, he would arrive at the Chen family's house in time for lunch. Therefore, he could only carry his things and bring his family out. However, Gu Yundong paused before she left and called Shui Rong and Tong Shuitao over. Dong Xiulan was stunned. The two of them were confused until Gu Yundong gave them some instructions in a low voice. They nodded solemnly and left the Gu family and Yongfu village. Only then did Gu Yundong catch up to Gu Dajiang. The family of four was quite good-looking, and they were especially eye-catching on the road. As soon as Dong Xiulan went out, she saw four people walking towards her. Especially when she saw Gu Dajiang carrying Gu Yunka, she was stunned. Who is this? Not only was he carrying little Kiki, but he was also so close to Madame Yang. If others saw this, wouldn't they gossip? It was Gu Yundong who greeted her first. Aunt, are you going to wash your clothes? Ah. Dong Xiulan nodded, but her curious gaze kept looking in Gu Dajiang one's direction. This is my father. He just returned yesterday. I'll bring my father to the village chief's house first. Well, come to Auntie's place another day. Dong Xiulan was a little stunned. It took her a while to react. Your father? Yundong, you found your father? Yes, I found her. Gu Dajiang nodded at her. It's the Zheng family's sister-in-law, right? I haven't been around these few days. Thank you for taking care of them. Dong Xiulan was stunned. She shook her head subconsciously. No. They took care of us. Gu Yundong waved his hand and left with Gu Dajiang. Dong Xiulan couldn't help but swallow her saliva. When they were far away, she suddenly slapped her thigh. She carried the wooden basin back to the courtyard and rushed to Jianghu. This is unbelievable. Jianghu was about to stand up when he was suddenly shocked by her. He fell back into the chair and immediately frowned. Why are you so shocked? You even asked me to pay attention to my legs. Look, you scared me. Dong Xiulan couldn't care less about his legs now. Her face was filled with shock. You don't know who I saw just now. Who? Yundong and her family. Jianghu couldn't help but want to touch her to see if she had a fever. Don't you see her family every day? Do you have to make such a fuss? No, I'm talking about her family. Besides Yundong and her mother, there's also her father. Jianghu glanced at her. Of course, her mother and father. He paused halfway. Huh? He said, who did you just say? Her father, Gu Dajiang. The one who lost contact with them on the way to escape. He's back. The thing in Zhenghu's hand fell to the ground with a bang. Really? I saw it with my own eyes. How can it be fake? Dong Xiulan slowly calmed down. Then, she sighed. It's finally over. Her family has reunited. Previously, in order to find her father, Yundong even left home for a long time. Her father is really similar to Yunshu. He looks even more magnanimous and knowledgeable than Jiang Yongkang. I feel like I don't know where to put my hands and feet in front of him. Jianghu saw that she had no intention of helping him pick up things, so he could only prop up his legs and bend down to reach for them. He answered casually, isn't that normal? Yundong's father is really educated. Yunshu used to know a lot of words. I heard that it was his father who taught him. Those who are really knowledgeable give off a different feeling from the inside out. Oh, you know what feeling is? Dong Xiulan said in amusement. Gu Yundong's father is really back, why wouldn't I know? Look at Jiang Yongkang. Although he's dressed decently, is energetic, and speaks politely, you can tell at a glance that he hasn't studied. Dong Xiulan was puzzled. You don't seem to like Jiang Yongkang. Didn't he help bring you back earlier? Zheng Hu stood up and walked out. What's there not to like? He's from town, and I'm just a farmer. It should be he who doesn't like me. I just feel uncomfortable talking to him. He thought about it and didn't know how to express it. He likes to talk word by word. He starts quoting ancient books after 2 sentences. I get a headache and can't chat with him. Then you're finished. Yundong's father has studied, so there's a lot of ink in his stomach. He must know more words. When he comes to visit us later, you won't be able to entertain him. Zheng Hu shook his head. This is different. It wasn't like he hadn't spoken to a scholar before. For example, Mr. Chen had come to Yongfu village a few times before. He had only met him twice at the door and spoken more than a few words. However, there was no awkwardness. Instead, it made people feel very comfortable. Mr. Chen didn't talk too much. He just chatted normally. He talked about things others knew. Sometimes, as he talked, others would forget that he was actually a man with a lot of experience. In Zheng Hu's opinion, this was a true scholar. Jiang Yongkang looked a little out of place. But no matter what, he had never seen Gu Dajiang before and did not know his personality. However, he was still very happy that the Gu family was reunited. It was not just his family. Many people in the village had seen them along the way and naturally knew that Gu Yundong's father had returned. For a moment, everyone began to discuss. Many people would stop them and ask questions. By the time Gu Yundong and the others reached the village chief's house, half an hour had passed. The first person to see them was Jincai. He almost jumped up when he saw Gu Yundong. No, he had just gone to her not long ago, and now she was here. Was she going to settle scores with him? Gu Yundong smiled, and Gu Dajiang, who was beside her, spoke first. Excuse me, is the village chief at home? Only then did Jincai stop his gaze on him. After a slight pause, he nodded. He is. Come in. As he spoke, he turned around and called for his father. Liang knew that Gu Yundong had returned, but he did not know that Gu Dajiang had also been found. When she saw them, she was really shocked and her eyes widened in surprise. In fact, his initial thoughts were similar to Aunt Kess. He also felt that Gu Dajiang was either gone or he was most likely remarried and had children outside. It was unlikely that he would return. Unexpectedly, he really appeared. Moreover, from the looks of it, he cherished Madame Yang, his wife. Liang thought that it was no wonder that he could raise 3 children like Yundong and her siblings. As expected, a father had a huge impact on his children. As Liang spoke to Gu Dajiang, he thought about many things. When he knew that Gu Dajiang had come to his house as soon as he returned, he couldn't suppress the joy on his face. This meant that the man valued him. Scholars were indeed different. They knew etiquette. In his happiness, Liang could not help but pull him along and say a few more words. It was only when Gu Yundong saw that it was almost lunchtime that she interrupted them and expressed that they had to go back. However, before she left, she took another look at Jincai. Arrangements for Jincai's heart trembled a little under that gaze. She was here. She was indeed here. As expected, she would complain to his father that he had gone to her in private for the job. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have been so kind. He even told her that someone had designs on her mother. Gu Yundong did not know that he was mentally prepared to retort at any time. She said to Liang, Uncle Chen, I have something to discuss with you. Yes? Tell me. Jincai widened his eyes and hurriedly said, I don't think there's any good business, here it goes. I'm still lacking someone. I want to find someone experienced to work at my place. Brother Chen is a good person. I wonder if you're willing to let him come. Gu Yundong ignored Chen Jincai and told him her plan. Chen Jincai was stunned, and so was Chen Liang. He glanced at his eldest son and frowned. What did she mean by brother Chen is a good person? The Gu family's girl had just returned yesterday evening and came over so early today. She had never even met Jincai before. How could she have the impression that he was a good person? This was clearly an excuse for his sake. She must have heard about his family's matters and was taking care of him. However, Chen Liang felt that he could not push his luck. Although he was the village chief, he could not have such privileges. Moreover, his Jinbao was already working in the Gu family's workshop and had even increased his salary last month. His eldest son would work there too. That was too unreasonable. Hence, Chen Liang shook his head. Gu girl, I know you're taking care of our family, but there has to be a limit to everything. Your workshop doesn't lack people now. If you recruit one more person, your family will pay an additional salary. What if others find out and force you to accept them into the workshop? It doesn't matter if you recruit one, but what about 5 or 10? That's not how things work. Chen Jincai's originally happy expression suddenly froze and he turned his head away angrily. Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. Uncle Chen, you're thinking too much. I'm not asking brother Chen to work at my house for your sake. I do need to recruit people, and they're not going to the workshop. They're going to the county city. What? To the county city? That's right. I plan to open a shop in the prefectural city in a few days. Shopkeeper Zheng in this county city is going to be transferred away. He has experience as a shopkeeper and has worked in the prefectural city in the past. Therefore, isn't the shop in this county city lacking people? I have to recruit a new one. I thought of brother Chen. I heard that brother Chen used to work in town and has someone under him. He must be capable. I'm afraid the position is too insignificant for him. It's not insignificant at all, it's not insignificant at all. Chen Jincai quickly replied. He was full of smiles and almost cheered. He was really surprised. He did not expect that not only did the Gu family's younger sister not snitch on him in front of his parents, but she also gave him a job. As expected, she was indeed someone who did great things. Chen Liang was also stunned. Go to the prefectural city to open a shop. He had thought about this before and felt that it would happen sooner or later. However, he did not expect it to happen so quickly. Even Madame Zhou and the others, who had heard the commotion not far away, were very surprised. But soon, this surprise was replaced by surprise. Chen Jincai could not help but cough lightly. He tugged at Gu Yundong's hand slightly and asked, Sister Gu, so you want me to go straight to the county city as the shopkeeper? He could. He could. Gu Yundong gave him a strange look. Dream on. Bring me along. She did not stand on ceremony and interrupted his fantasy. Not a shopkeeper, but a shop assistant. The smile on Chen Jincai's face froze as expected. He looked at her with a shocked expression. Then, who will be the shopkeeper? Yuanzhi, Gu Yundong said matter-of-factly. He's been working for Gus for a long time and is already very experienced. Moreover, he's familiar with the process and knows the guests. It's only natural for him to be promoted to shopkeeper. Chen Jincai felt as if he had been hit by a stick. Yuanzhi? That hooligan? He had never thought that he would one day be a worker under a hooligan that he had once looked down on. Wasn't this cutting his heart? He retracted his thoughts. This girl from the Gu family was simply too cruel. Gu Yundong saw the change in his expression and asked with a smile, Brother Chen, are you unwilling? But if our shop needs a shopkeeper, they have to start as a shop assistant. Even shopkeeper Zheng used to be a shop assistant in the prefecture city for a few years. As she spoke, she sighed slightly. Since you're unwilling, forget it. Thinking about it, it makes sense. After all, Brother Chen used to be a manager. It's indeed a waste of your talent to be a shop assistant. It seems that I can only find another person. Jincai's eyes widened and he instantly blurted out, "Who said I'm unwilling? I'm very willing." Not only Gu Yundong, but even Chen Liang looked at him in surprise. Chen Liang had come to understand his son during this period of time. He was indeed a little ambitious. He always missed the days when he worked in town. It was as if he was still a small manager. Chen Liang almost raised his hoe to hit his head a few times. When he heard that his son was going to be a shop assistant, Chen Liang also felt that it was impossible. Who knew that his son would actually agree? Perhaps sensing his strange gaze, Jincai immediately said, "So what if he's a shop assistant?" "He's a shop assistant in the county. Wouldn't he be more knowledgeable than a small manager in town? Besides, if I work hard, I can become a shopkeeper." Chen Liang felt that these words were more like his son's. He looked at Gu Yundong, who smiled and said, "So you've agreed?" "Agreed," Jincai said. Chen Liang thought about it and nodded. "All right, but you still have to wait for a few days. I'll come and look for Brother Chen then." Gu Yundong had already stood up. "Uncle Chen, well, leave first." Chen Liang sent them to the door, paused, and walked back. However, there was a smile on his face in the end, especially when he saw that his wife, Madame Zhou, also looked like she had been relieved of a burden. She felt at ease. Jincai's wife, Madame Wei, was also overjoyed. She turned around and followed Jincai into the house. She leaned close to his ear and whispered, "When you go to the county city, bring me along. I'll take care of your laundry and food." Jincai's smile faded slightly. He frowned and said, "Why would I bring you along? I'm just a small shop assistant." When Yuanzhi was a shop assistant, did he bring anyone along? Isn't that because Yuanzhi hasn't married yet? That won't do either. It wasn't easy for me to find a job. Don't make trouble for me. If I lose the job, you will have to support me. Stay at home for a few more years. When I become a shopkeeper and my salary is high, I'll bring you there." Madame Wei was furious and stormed out of the room. At this moment, Gu Yundong, who had already left the Chen family, was walking very slowly. She would occasionally look around. Love rivals meet. Gu Dajiang found it strange. "Didn't you say that it's getting late? The weather is so hot. Let's go back quickly." Gu Yundong was a little disappointed that she did not see the person she wanted to see. Seeing that Miss Gu Yunka was feeling so hot that she was fanning herself with her small hands, her heart ached. She quickened her pace. "Let's go. I'll make you something delicious when we get back." The little girl instantly felt no heat and nodded with bright eyes. "What is it?" "It's cold." When her family built the house, they had dug an ice house. Some ice was stored in the winter. Although it was not much, it was enough to make some snacks. The little girl immediately grabbed her hand, wanting to get home as soon as possible. Gu Yundong had no choice but to let her pull along. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, a person suddenly walked over. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and stopped. Uncle Jiang. When Jiang Yongkang heard the voice, he first looked at Gu Yundong and Gu Yunka, then at Gu Dajiang and Madame Yang, who were standing behind them. Before he could say anything, he heard Gu Yundong's smiling voice. "Father, this is Uncle Jiang. He lives in town and is staying in our village for the time being." Gu Dajiang looked at her strangely. He had met many villagers before, but most of them were only greeted with smiles. It was abnormal to introduce someone who wasn't from Yongfu village so seriously. However, he was able to stay calm. He nodded at Jiang Yongkang. "Brother Jiang, come to my house when you're free." Jiang Yongkang felt that his throat was blocked, and he couldn't say a word. Along the way, almost everyone in the village was talking about Gu Yundong's father. They were talking about how tall and handsome he was, how refined and elegant he was, and how the family was happy and warm. These words rang in Jiang Yongkang's ears, especially ear-piercing. He sneered in his heart. These people really knew how to exaggerate. Happy? Handsome? If this man was really so good, would he have taken a fancy to Madame Yang? Would he have so much patience for a fool? In order to enter the Gu family's workshop, these villagers did not even care about their integrity. Their flattery was simply unbearable. Jiang Yongkang was very dissatisfied and unconvinced. He even went to the Zheng family to ask around. Unexpectedly, Jianghu said that this family had come to the village chief's house, so Jiang Yongkang rushed back. As expected, he bumped into the Gu family. However, he realized that the villagers were not exaggerating at all. This Gu Dajiang was younger than him, more knowledgeable, and taller than him. Moreover, he seemed to be really good to Madame Yang, and the way she looked at him was filled with dependence. Jiang Yongkang was furious at that moment, but there were 4 people standing opposite him. He could only suppress his anger and force a smile. You must be Brother Gu. I didn't believe it when I heard that you were back. I didn't expect it to be true. Yes, our family is finally reunited, Gu Dajiang said as he looked at Madame Yang gently. Madame Yang also turned around to look at him, her eyes seemingly shining. Jiang Yongkang clenched his fists and almost cursed. Gu Yundong had been secretly observing his expression. Seeing him like this, what could she not be sure of? Jiang Yongkang had indeed taken a fancy to her mother and wanted to seize the Gu family's assets. Humph, what a wishful thinking. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Gu Dajiang left with his wife and children. Only Jiang Yongkang stood at the back, his expression changing. I have something to ask you after a long time, he finally waved his hand. Ignoring the scorching sun above his head, he turned around and strode towards the village entrance. Gu Yundong glanced at the direction he had left from the corner of her eye, and her mouth curled up slightly. She heard a cough behind her. She subconsciously turned her head and met Gu Dajiang's meaningful expression. What's going on? Talk to me after we're home. Gu Yundong laughed dryly. Her father was indeed her father. His acuity was not something to be taken lightly. With such a father around, Gu Yundong did not hide it. When she returned home, she told him her guess. Gu Dajiang's expression instantly darkened. You should have told me earlier. I could have beaten him up just now. He sneered, feeling extremely disgusted. Such a person actually dared to covet his wife and wanted to snatch his assets. Such an ugly guy. Gu Yundong clicked her tongue. She did not expect her father to be a belligerent person. Since you already know his scheme, what do you plan to do next? Gu Yundong said, let's take another look and see if my other guess is right. She thought that if her deduction was correct, Jiang Yongkang should have already left the village and gone to town. Indeed, he rushed all the way under the sun and finally arrived at the entrance of the town after noon. At this moment, his mouth was very dry. Coupled with his anger, his expression was especially ugly. Therefore, he did not notice that there was a man and a woman sitting in a tea shop at the entrance of the town. They faced the direction of the town and narrowed their eyes when they saw him. Miss is right. He really came. Tong Shuitao lowered her voice and covered half of her face, as if she was afraid that Jiang Yongkang would recognize her. Shui Rong, who was sitting beside her, was very calm. He took a sip of tea and said slowly, he came a little later than expected. Yes, I've already drunk a few cups of tea. Tong Shuitao originally wanted to eat something to fill her stomach, but now that it was filled with water, she decided to forget it. On the other side, Jiang Yongkang didn't even have the time to drink tea. He wiped his sweat and continued walking. Tong Shuitao quickly pushed Shui Rong. Hurry up and follow him. Okay, wait here. Shui Rong stood up and slowly followed Jiang Yongkang. He had just arrived at Yongfu village and was a stranger. Jiang Yongkang had never seen him before. Even if they met face to face, he would not know that Shui Rong was from the Gu family. Therefore, he walked openly. No one would think that he was following someone at this moment. Jiang Yongkang was even less energetic after a long journey. He turned corners in the town with familiarity. After walking for about 15 minutes, he finally stopped outside a small courtyard. Shui Rong stood at the corner and casually glanced over. Jiang Yongkang knocked on the door for a while and heard footsteps coming from inside. After a while, the door opened. When the person saw that it was him, he was stunned for a moment, but his voice was filled with dissatisfaction. "Why are you here? You even came over so openly. Are you afraid that others want gossip? Cut the crap. Let me in first. I have something to ask you." Jiang Yongkang pushed that person away and strode into the courtyard. That person was dissatisfied and his face was filled with anger. However, since things had already come to this, he could only look outside the door angrily. Fortunately, it was very hot at this hour. There was no one outside, and the street was empty. No one should have seen Jiang Yongkang when he entered just now. Collusion. After the courtyard door closed, the man turned around and followed Jiang Yongkang in. Jiang Yongkang's expression was ugly. When he entered the house, he realized that there was another person inside. He immediately snorted. "You're here too? That's good. It saves me a lot of time. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be in Yongfu village?" Xiulan stood up and frowned. She looked a little uneasy. Madame Fang, who came in later, also muttered unhappily, "That's right. You came over at noon. Do you still want to come to my house for lunch?" She had always been stingy, especially when she had spent a lot of money in town. She was even more unwilling to pour him tea. Jiang Yongkang's already anxious mood was completely ignited by her words. "Pfft, do you think everyone is like you? You don't have money and love face, yet you're still so stingy. You married a daughter and came to town with her. You look like you want to be raised by her in-laws." Madame Fang was so angry that she almost couldn't breathe. She pointed at Jiang Yongkang with a trembling finger. What did you say?" "All right, what are you arguing about?" Xiulan frowned. She was very frustrated. She stood between the two of them and said, "What's going on? Uncle Jiang, did something happen when you came to town at this hour? Is Yundong back?" Jiang Yongkang immediately shifted his gaze, but his anger did not diminish. "You still dare to say that?" "Yes, she's back. Not only is she back, but she also brought her father back." Madame Fang and her daughter were stunned. "How is that possible? How is that impossible? I saw Dajiang with my own eyes before I came. Now, everyone in Yongfu village knows that he's back. His family has reunited and is harmonious. It has nothing to do with us." Madame Fang opened her mouth and looked at Xiulan in disbelief. The latter shook his head in a daze and fell into a chair. She muttered softly, "How is that possible? Back then, Xianxia clearly told me that Dajiang was already dead. On the way to escape, his father, Dai, lured all the bandits to Dajiang's side to escape. There were more than 10 bandits. How could Dajiang have survived?" Yes, although Xiulan had only met Xianxia once, the two of them hated Yundong to the core and did not want her to have an easy time. That was why they wanted to cause trouble together. It was Xianxia's idea to get someone to seduce Madame Yang. After all, Xianxia knew better. She had told Xiulan that Dajiang was already dead. Madame Yang was a fool, and a very stubborn fool at that. As long as she was settled, there would be no problem with Yundong. But at that time, Xianxia did not know that Yundong was a completely different person. Not to mention Madame Yang, even if she could deal with Yunshu and Yunka, it would be useless. However, Xiulan was interested. She hated Yundong and coveted the Gu family's assets, especially that green brick house. She even dreamed of living in it. She felt that this plan was feasible and discussed it with Madame Fang when she returned. The two of them felt that they could give it a try. After some thought, they realized that Zhao Dafa from the village was not bad. His wife was gone, and he looked tall and mighty. His family background was also all right. Of course, they also knew that Zhao Dafa always hid his wife. Unexpectedly, when Zhao Dafa heard that he had to get close to the Gu family, he didn't even hear the whole story and directly rejected it. The fact that Gu Yundong had beaten up 4 hoodlums had completely frightened Zhao Dafa. Chapter 535. Perhaps Gu Dajiang is fake. Madame Fang and her daughter were furious, but at the same time, they understood that it was unrealistic to look for someone in the village. Xiulan wanted to see Gu Xian'er again and ask her for an idea. However, Gu Xian'er couldn't leave the Peng family at all. Later on, Xiulan heard that she had become Peng Zongfei's concubine and couldn't even see her. She didn't know if she was dead or alive. Madame Fang and her daughter could only put this plan on hold until Xiulan married into the Wu family in town. The town was not big. Madame Fang had bumped into Jiang Yongkang by accident. At that time, he was chatting with a married woman. Although it was called a chat, it was actually an indistinct seduction. The woman even gave him a small gold ring. Madame Fang's eyes lit up. This woman's husband was a refined and handsome man. His family background was not bad either. With such a husband, the woman was actually seduced by Jiang Yongkang and even gave him money. What did it mean? This meant that Jiang Yongkang was very good at coaxing women. In addition, he looked like a scholar. Wasn't he similar to Gu Dajiang? Madame Fang went back and told Xiulan. The two of them found Jiang Yongkang and told him about the Gu family situation. They hit it off almost immediately. Jiang Yongkang heard that the Gu family had a workshop and a shop, more than 100 acres of fields, and a unique green brick house in the village. There was no adult man in the family. As long as he hooked up with Madame Yang, wouldn't everything be his? So what if Madame Yang was a fool? Fools were easy to trick. The only one who was difficult to deal with was Gu Yundong. But she was just a young lady who had yet to reach adulthood. He had been running amok among women for so many years. Could he not deal with her? However, the truth was completely beyond his expectations. There were servants in the Gu family. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for him to get close to Madame Yang. However, after seeing the Gu family's assets, he was still indignant. He had to give it a try. However, after so long, he still did not make any progress. Jiang Yongkang was furious. The information you gave me was wrong. Gu Dajiang is alive and well. You're wasting my time. Don't push the blame onto us. Why don't you say that you're useless? It's been half a year. You can't even take down a fool, yet you still dare to say that you are the ladies' man. If you hadn't delayed and taken down Madame Yang before Gu Dajiang returned, the Gu family would have been ours long ago. Gu Dajiang wouldn't have had anything to do with it. Madame Fang sneered and felt a little regretful. Perhaps this person was not capable to begin with. She had misjudged him. Jiang Yongkang's face turned red. He almost wanted to hit her. It's easy for you to say. If you have the ability, go close to the Gu family and see if you'll be beaten out. Xiulan felt dizzy from the noise. Alright, why are you still arguing at a time like this? Humph. Jiang Yongkang sneered. Then tell me, what should we do now? Xiulan frowned. I think something's wrong. Why did Gu Dajiang come back at this time? Are you sure it's Gu Dajiang? Could it be a fake? The two of them were stunned. That's impossible, right? Why not? Other than Gu Yundong's family, who else in the village knows Gu Dajiang? If they find someone outside and say that it's him, no one will suspect him. Xiulan sneered and said, anyway, Uncle Jiang, you go back first. I'll go back to the village with Mother tomorrow to take a look. Jiang Yongkang could only nod. Chapter 536. Passion of the Long Workers. No one knew that at this moment, under the window outside their house, a person was leaning against the wall in boredom, listening to the conversation between the three of them clearly. Shui Rong knocked on the house next door and gave that person a tael of silver. He told the other party that he was here to catch the adulterer. Then, he climbed over the wall of this house and entered Madame Fang's courtyard. Madame Fang had just moved here not long ago and was a widow. She was also a calculative person and naturally did not have a good relationship with the woman next door, who could not wait for her to be extremely unlucky and let Shui Rong in without a word. Shui Rong waited until Jiang Yongkang left with Madame Fang and her daughter before returning to the courtyard next door. The woman next door said excitedly, "Young man, you're right. That Madame Fang is indeed restless. I secretly opened the courtyard door just now and saw a man sneaking out of the courtyard." Shui Rong smiled at her. "There's not enough evidence this time. It's not to the point of catching them in the act. Please keep it a secret for me and don't leak it. It'll definitely teach them a lesson next time." Okay. Don't worry. I promise I won't tell anyone." The woman even made an oath and agreed readily. Her eyes flickered with a gloating light. Only then did Shui Rong quietly leave the courtyard. When he returned to the tea shop at the entrance of the town, Tong Shuitao immediately welcomed him. "How did it go? Did you see Jiang Yongkang leave?" Tong Shuitao shook her head. "No. It made sense. This person had rushed to town without eating lunch or drinking water. He should be tired, hungry, and thirsty. It was more important to find a place to eat first. Then let's go back first." The two of them came in a carriage and did not need much time to return to Yongfu village. When they reached home, Yundong was taking Dajiang to the workshop to see how everyone was doing. At this time, there were already a lot more fruits. The 50 long-term workers in the workshop were all busy. As the Gu family only had one shop, although they also cooperated with the Liu family's restaurant, they could still meet the demand. When she opened the shop in the prefecture capital later, there would be too few people. When the time came, she would have to recruit people. When they saw Yundong, everyone greeted her warmly. After knowing Dajiang's identity, they congratulated him and said that her family's hardships had finally come to an end. Dajiang sighed when he saw this scene. Who would have thought that in such a short period of time, his family had gone from being a pitiful worm that was bullied by the old Gu family to one that now had a house, land, and even long-term workers. They walked around the workshop and Yundong asked about the situation. She learned that everything was fine. Not long ago, during the Dragon Boat Festival, the workshop had distributed a lot of meat dumplings for everyone to eat. This was Yundong's idea. On some special days, there would be a festive atmosphere. Even if there were not many things and they were not expensive, everyone would be more motivated in such an atmosphere. Therefore, when she left Yongfu village previously, she instructed Tong'an to get someone to buy some meat dumplings on the day of the Dragon Boat Festival. Everyone was very happy about this. They praised the Gu family's workshop fiercely, causing many people in the nearby villages to be envious. They asked when the Gu family's workshop would recruit more workers. Now that Yundong was back, someone quickly took the opportunity to ask, "Boss Gu, is our workshop still hiring?" Chapter 537, He's waiting at home, that's right, Boss Gu. When are we going to hire again? My younger brother from my maternal family is a capable person. He's very honest and diligent. He heard that the Gu family's workshop is great. He really wants to come. He asked me several times if it was recruiting. My maternal cousin is the same. He says he has endless energy and can do dirty and tiring work. Yes. My cousin-in-law also said that she wants to try. Everyone present had relatives. Since they had such a good job, they naturally wanted to help their families. It was best if everyone was good. Yundong waited for them to finish asking before he smiled and said, "Indeed, we will recruit people again. After some time, you can ask your brothers, sisters, or cousins to give it a try. But I must state beforehand that my requirements are very strict. Of course. If they don't match, just don't use them." That's right. We came in with our own abilities. We can't let people who don't work hard come in to fool around. Gu Yundong said goodbye to them before leaving the workshop with Gu Dajiang. On the way back, Gu Dajiang's face was filled with obvious joy. Father, do you want to go to the orchard to take a look? When they reached home, Gu Yundong took a sip of water and asked. Gu Dajiang shook his head. Well, go another day. Your mother is tired after half a day. Gu Yundong almost choked on the water. No, she felt that it was better to stay away from them. She was afraid that she would be stuffed to death sooner or later if she were to eat dog food after every few words. Gu Yundong waved her hand and hurried out of the central room. Then, she saw Shui Rong and Tong Shuitao, who had returned. Did you find out? She asked as she walked up to them. Shui Rong nodded and lowered his voice. Miss, you're right. Jiang Yongkang did go to town in a hurry to meet Madame Fang and her daughter. He recounted everything he had seen and heard along the way. Gu Yundong sneered. So, they will come to Yongfu village tomorrow? Yes. Sure, just in time. Gu Yundong could not understand what was wrong with Madame Fang and her daughter's brains. Why did they think that Jiang Yongkang could claim the Gu family? Their intelligence was indeed not presentable. Gu Yundong clicked her tongue. He turned around and realized that Gu Dajiang was standing behind him. Father, did you hear everything? Yeah. Then. Are you still going to Yuanzhi's school tomorrow? That can wait. I'll wait at home tomorrow and see what they want. Gu Yundong felt that her father's murderous aura was not as simple as he said, right? Dad, don't tell me you really want to beat up Jiang Yongkang? Gu Dajiang turned around and returned to his room. He didn't deny it. Did he really want to attack? Gu Yundong rubbed her forehead. As he wanted to find trouble with Jiang Yongkang, Gu Dajiang didn't mention going to school the next day. After Yunshu and Yuanzhi left, he waited at home. However, no one came. Gu Dajiang couldn't sit still, so he got up and left the Gu residence. This place was close to the foot of the mountain. In the past, there were not many people. Now that there was the Gu family workshop and 2 large green brick houses erected, it was like the landmark of the village. There were a lot of people. However, there was no one around at this time. At the thought of the green brick house, Gu Dajiang's gaze landed on another building not far away. She snorted coldly in her heart and was about to avert her gaze when the courtyard door suddenly opened. Chapter 538, The Wrong Person. Immediately after, a tall figure walked out. Gu Dajiang narrowed his eyes and looked over. He felt that this person was handsome, but his clothes were too eye-catching. This was Xiao Qingyuan. How could a farmer's boy dress up like this when he was walking around his village? Sure enough, with some money, he started to become arrogant and pretend to take himself seriously. Gu Dajiang snorted coldly. That person ran over excitedly and shouted happily, Yundong, I heard that you're back. Gu Dajiang's face darkened. Not only was he dressed inappropriately, but he also looked unreliable. Why would his daughter fall for such a person? Gu Dajiang took a deep breath and stepped in front of him. Liu Wei was stunned for a moment. He looked at the completely unfamiliar man in front of him in surprise. He blinked and asked, Uncle, who are you? Why are you blocking me? You're Xiao Qingyuan. Gu Dajiang felt that he had to confirm it first before deciding how he should treat him. Liu Wei was surprised. He wanted to shake his head subconsciously, but he quickly reacted. The man in front of him was very unfamiliar, but his eyes revealed strong hostility and contempt. Oh, where did this crappy old man come from? He actually dared to look down on his brother and wanted to harm him? Liu Wei snorted coldly, raised his chin slightly, and said very loyally, So what if I am? So what? Gu Dajiang really wanted to slap him. This person wasn't a good person. He took himself seriously just because he had some money. He was rude and arrogant. If Yundong married him in the future, wouldn't she be bullied to death? He glared at Liu Wei. Hurry up and get lost. Why? Who do you think you are? How dare you tell me to get lost? Liu Wei was in disbelief. Where did this idiot come from? It was fine if he didn't know him, but he actually dared to chase him away on his territories? Liu Wei did not know that Gu Yundong's father had returned. He had heard from Yuanzhi that Gu Yundong had returned when he was buying canned food at Gus yesterday. He was too excited and did not hear the rest of the sentence, so he hurriedly planned to come over. After all, she had gone out for a while. When she came back, she would definitely bring a gift for her good friend. Liu Wei didn't feel embarrassed or guilty at all for taking the initiative to ask for a gift. This morning, he came to Yongfu village in a hurry. As usual, he went to the Xiao family first to look for Xiao Qingyuan, but he was not around. Liu Wei turned around and left the house. Then, he ran towards the Gu residence. However, he did not expect that there would be a door guardian at the entrance of the Gu residence. Moreover, it was a super unreasonable door guardian. His temper was rising. Do you know what price the person who told me to scram last time paid? Let me tell you, the grass on his grave is already as tall as you. If you know what's good for you, quickly move aside. Otherwise, do you believe that it'll break your legs? Seriously, where did this lunatic come to the Gu family to behave atrociously? Gu Dajiang was so angry that he almost fell backward. He took 2 steps forward and pushed him impatiently in the direction of the Xiao family. Just get lost. Don't show off in front of me. Even if you have some money, you're calling yourself young master? Let me tell you, this is forgetting your roots. I won't agree to my daughter's marriage with you. Liu Wei was caught off guard and was really pushed back more than 10 steps by him. It was not easy for him to stabilize himself, and smoke almost came out of his head. Who wants to marry your daughter? Don't flatter yourself. Chapter 539. Breaking his head. Gu Dajiang felt that he had pushed him far enough. He immediately retracted his hand and ignored him. He turned around and returned to the Gu family. Liu Wei felt that he was being looked down upon like never before. He even raised his fist. Where did this lunatic come from? It's simply ridiculous. Let me tell you, a low cry suddenly came from behind. Liu Wei was stunned. He realized that he had swung his fist too hard just now and hit the person behind him. He immediately turned around and saw the woman he had hit covering her face and retreating. She accidentally stepped on a rock and fell backward. Be careful. Liu Wei reflexively reached out and grabbed her waist to prevent her from falling to the ground. When Gu Dajiang heard the commotion behind him, he turned his head and happened to see this scene. He was instantly infuriated. It was fine if he was unreliable and rude, but now that he was clearly engaged to Yundong, he was still hugging another woman. What was wrong with him? Gu Dajiang looked around. He wanted to find a stick to smash his head. Liu Wei did not know that his life was about to be in danger. He steadied the woman's body and wanted to let go of her. Unexpectedly, the other party grabbed his clothes tightly with a frightened expression. Liu Wei, young Master Liu, thank you. The woman's voice was like a mosquito's, with a trace of shock. Liu Wei trembled unconsciously and hurriedly let go of her. The woman looked up. Only then did he feel that she looked familiar. It was just that, he couldn't remember where he had seen her before. But he apologized anyway. I hit you just now. I'm sorry. It's not young Master Liu's fault. I stood behind young Master Liu rashly. I just wanted to greet young Master Liu. I didn't expect this to happen. Liu Wei frowned. If you want to greet me, so be it. Why were you standing behind me pretending to be a ghost? However, it was good that the other party was fine. He took 2 steps back and was about to leave when another woman walked out. Liu Wei also felt that she looked a little familiar. He just couldn't remember where he had seen them before. Strange, when did his memory become so bad? Madame Fang and her daughter were very happy to see him. Although Xiulan was married, she still couldn't help but be interested in a young master like Liu Wei. She was a little surprised to be hit by him while standing behind him, but it was true that she wanted to get close to him. Unexpectedly, he actually hugged her. Madame Fang, who had arrived a step later, frowned and bumped into her, signaling her with her eyes not to forget her identity. However, Xiulan felt very aggrieved. She had known young Master Lu for a long time and had interacted with him before she got married. Young Master Lu had a good impression of her and his attitude was very good. At that time, as long as she worked hard, she might be able to become the young madam of the Lu family. Unfortunately, Madame Fang disagreed. Liu Wei didn't know what Xiulan was thinking. Otherwise, he would have vomited blood. Shui Rong heard the commotion outside the door. When he saw Liu Wei acting like a rich second-generation heir and heard him admit that he was Xiao Qingyuan, he had a bad feeling. He quickly ran in to tell Gu Yundong. Thus, when Gu Yundong came out, she saw that her father had finally found a stick. He walked angrily towards Liu Wei and raised his hand, wanting to beat him up. Gu Yundong gasped and hurriedly shouted, "Father, stop." Chapter 540. He can bend and stretch with a thick skin. Gu Dajiang's raised hand paused. Liu Wei suddenly turned around and saw the stick that was inches away. He immediately screamed and jumped to the side. You're indeed a lunatic. You actually still want to hit me. Do you really think I'm weakling? As he spoke, Liu Wei was about to make a move. However, Gu Yundong suddenly rushed over and slapped his hand away. What are you doing? He's my father. She knew that Liu Wei had practiced martial arts. Although he only had amateur martial arts skills, it was more than enough to deal with the weak Gu Dajiang. Liu Wei almost fell to the ground. When he stabilized himself, his eyes widened in shock. His fingers trembled fiercely, and he looked like he was about to go crazy. What did you say? This lunatic is your father? Liu Wei, what did you say? Liu Wei suddenly took a step back, but he still looked incredulous. On the other hand, Gu Dajiang snorted and said to Gu Yundong, I knew it. He's unreliable. You shouldn't marry a man like him. You were indeed lying to me about his advantages of maturity and stability. How is he reliable? As he spoke, he turned to look at Liu Wei. Xiao Qingyuan, if you want to marry my daughter, do it in your next life. Gu Yundong was speechless. What happened? Liu Wei was speechless. Wait. Did he do something wrong to hurt his brother again? Fortunately, Gu Yundong was quick-witted and immediately reacted. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. Father, he's not Xiao Qingyuan. What? But he said he was. He glared at Liu Wei with a look that said, I dare you to deny it. This time, Liu Wei's brain finally functioned normally. He immediately took a step back and bowed 90 degrees to Gu Dajiang. He said sincerely, Uncle, I was wrong. I failed to recognize you and didn't speak properly. I'm worse than a beast. If you want to hit or scold me, just do it. Please teach me seriously so that I won't make the same mistake again. Gu Dajiang was speechless. What kind of people had he met recently? Could it be that everyone who was related to Xiao Qingyuan had such a thick skin? The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Liu Wei's cultivation level had increased by another level. It seemed that in the past few months when she was not around, he had really improved. Looking at Gu Dajiang's furious expression, she finally touched her forehead and said in a low voice, Father, this is Liu Wei, the young master of the Liu family. Gu Dajiang was stunned. Of course, he had heard of Liu Wei. When Gu Yundong mentioned this friend, she sounded very happy and comfortable. It was said that he was an outgoing young master who did not put on any airs. Old Master Liu had also taught Yundong a lot of business matters. Second young Master Liu was also Yunshu's classmate. For their sake, Gu Dajiang had a good impression of Liu Wei. However, these good impressions were completely shattered during their meeting and conversation just now. He couldn't help but sigh. He glanced at Liu Wei and said angrily, "All right, if there's anything, let's talk inside. Stop making a fuss. Who calls a woman's maiden name at the entrance?" "Yes, you're right. I won't do it again." Dajiang had no temper toward such people. He turned around and left. Seeing this, Liu Wei heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly followed. Madame Fang and her daughter stayed where they were. "What about us?" Chapter 541. Too touching. Yundong seemed to have just discovered the mother and daughter. She turned around in surprise. Aunt Fang, why are you here?" Madame Fang's eyes twitched. "We've always been here." "Really?" "I'm sorry, I didn't notice just now." Yundong smiled sweetly and sincerely. However, Madame Fang and her daughter felt that she was very detestable. She was clearly ignoring them on purpose. However, when she thought of her motive for coming today, Madame Fang suppressed the anger in her heart and squeezed out a smile. She said politely, "Your eyes were on young Master Liu. No wonder you didn't see us. By the way, this is..." She glanced at Dajiang and asked. Yundong found it funny. Didn't this woman hear her call him father just now? The woman even had an innocent expression on her face. "Aunt Fang, you're a widow. Isn't it inappropriate for you to ask about a man's identity?" Madame Fang was speechless. She really hated Yundong. Xiulan awkwardly changed the topic. "Mother, you're too much. Didn't Yundong call him father just now? He must be Uncle Gu." As she spoke, she smiled and called out to Dajiang. However, she quickly revealed a puzzled expression. "But Yundong, didn't I hear that Uncle Gu went missing? How did you find Uncle Gu?" Yundong looked at her with a faint smile. "How did I find him? Actually, I didn't find him. My father has been looking for us. My father is a person who values friendship and loyalty. Ever since he lost contact with us, he hasn't eaten a full meal or slept well. He took out all the money on him to find out the whereabouts of his wife and children. Sigh, the heavens don't let down hard-working people. After a lot of hardship and trouble, our family is finally reunited." Xiulan's face was twisted. It was as if she didn't say anything. Liu Wei wiped the corners of his eyes. "It's so touching." Yundong? Dajiang was speechless. Madame Fang and her daughter were even more speechless. Although the truth was quite touching, Yundong's exaggerated expression and prolonged voice made it sound like she was reciting a book. Yundong could not be bothered with Liu Wei's abundant feelings. She said to Madame Fang and her daughter, "If there's nothing else, well, go in first." Xiulan wanted to stop her. This woman had no manners at all. They were already in front of her house, but she didn't intend to let them in. She didn't invite them to drink some sugar water before leaving. However, Yundong pretended not to hear anything. She turned around and entered the door. When the door closed, she blocked Madame Fang and her daughter outside. The two of them stomped their feet in anger, but there was nothing they could do. They could only glare angrily at the door and turn around to leave. That Dajiang is somewhat similar to Yuanzhi. Could he really be Yundong's biological father? As Xiulan walked back, she knitted her brows and murmured, "How could it be so coincidental? Did they really find him? Mother, what should we do next? It won't be easy for Uncle Jiang to have any ideas about Yundong's foolish mother. Even if he succeeds, with Dajiang around, the Gu family's assets won't fall into his hands. At most, Dajiang will divorce Madame Yang and let her marry into the Jiang family." At the thought of this, Xiulan felt very depressed. All the preparations she had made for so long were in vain. She kicked the stone under her feet in frustration. Suddenly, she realized that it had been very quiet beside her. She had said so much, but her mother did not reply. She turned around in surprise and looked at Madame Fang. "Mother, I'm talking to you. Did you hear me?" Chapter 542, Fond of Gu Dajiang. Madame Fang suddenly stopped in her tracks. It was unknown what she was thinking, but her eyes suddenly lit up with burning ambition. Laner, that's Gu Dajiang, right? Xiulan blinked. Yes, Gu Yundong calls him father. Madame Fang's smile gradually widened. Gu Dajiang is quite good-looking. Moreover, I heard that he has studied before. He's a knowledgeable person. Xiulan knew her mother too well. When she heard this, how could she not understand what her mother was trying to do? But this was too whimsical. Mother, don't tell me you want to, Madame Fang glared at her. Why? Can't I think about it? Gu Dajiang is talented, handsome, and so rich. Think about it. If we let Jiang Yongkang seduce Madame Yang, we'll have to split the Gu family's assets equally with him. But if Gu Dajiang and I achieve something, the entire Gu family will be ours. When I win over Gu Dajiang, Gu Yundong will have to listen to me and do whatever I tell her to do. Xiulan felt that this matter was unreliable. But Gu Yundong just said that Gu Dajiang values the mother and daughter very much. He even suffered a lot to find them. What do you know? Don't others say that the more you lack something, the more you stress it? Look at how confident she is. She's clearly afraid that others will see that Gu Dajiang doesn't care about them. That's deliberately for outsiders to see. With Madame Yang's appearance, which man has the patience to coax her? But this is just your guess, mother. What Xiulan didn't say was that regardless of whether Gu Dajiang really looked down on Madame Yang, at least she was good-looking. Although her mother was not bad, she was still far inferior to Madame Yang. However, on second thought, so what if Madame Yang was good-looking? She was a fool who did not even understand the relationship between a man and a woman. Men were the most impatient. They could still coax her for a day or two, but after a long time, they would probably be tired of her. Then, it was not a bad idea to let her mother try. I'm just afraid that it won't be easy to get rid of Uncle Jiang. Madame Fang waved her hand. It's fine. I'll talk to him. Xiulan did not say anything else. The two of them returned to Chen Liang's house with their own thoughts. Now that Madame Fang's courtyard had been rented to Jiang Yongkang, they naturally had to stay at Chen Liang's house. Not only the two of them, but Xiulan's husband, Wu Chong, was also present. He was talking to Chen Liang and the others. The Wu family also opened a small shop in town. In the beginning, Wu Chong and Xiulan were engaged because of Chen Jincai. After all, at that time, Chen Jincai was still a small manager in the workshop in town. Although there were few people he was in charge of, he still had a little power in his hands. For example, the goods his shop had to buy were partly decided by him in terms of price and time. Who knew that Chen Jincai would be sent home as soon as he got married to Xiulan? He could only be considered a farmer now. It was said that he had to work in the fields every day. Now that he looked at it, didn't the man's hands and face look much rougher? In the past, when Chen Jincai saw him, Chen Jincai always held his head high and was extremely confident. Occasionally, he would teach Wu Chong as his wife's uncle and even warn him not to bully Xiulan. Wu Chong was actually very unhappy. He was just a small manager. Did he really treat himself as an elder? Now that he saw Chen Jincai again, he suddenly had a sense of superiority. So what if he was his wife's uncle? So what if he was older than him? Wasn't he just a farmer who buried his head in the fields every day? Chapter 543, The Chen family's displeasure. Wu Chong was proud in his heart, and he could not help but show it on his face. He was no longer as humble towards Chen Jincai as before. Instead, he looked like he did not think much of him. Although the in-law's eldest uncle was the village chief of Yongfu village, he could not reach into town. His eldest cousin was now a farmer, and his second cousin was said to be working in some workshop. Oh, right, it's a workshop in Yongfu village. It's not very promising. In Wu Chang's opinion, there was something wrong with the Chen father and son's brains. They actually degraded themselves to be long-term workers in the village's workshop. What were they thinking? Wu Chong felt that his in-laws could no longer help him. He didn't care much about Qin Yulan's visit today. However, he wanted to vent his secret pride. He just wanted to see Qin Jincai's miserable state. Unexpectedly, Qin Jincai was different from what he had imagined. He seemed to be very happy with the hoe. Wu Chong could not vent the joy in his heart, so his face remained dark. Qin Yulan came back at this time. When Wu Chong saw her, he wanted to return to town as soon as possible. He didn't even want to stay for dinner. However, Qin Yulan didn't agree. Mom isn't back yet. Let's have lunch before we leave. I saw that eldest aunt and sister-in-law are busy in the kitchen. It's not good to leave just like that. Madame Wei happened to hear this when she came in with a teapot to add water to them. She pursed her lips secretly. When she returned to the kitchen, she could not help but mutter to Madame Song. She knew that we were busy in the kitchen, but she didn't come in to help. Didn't you see that young master's eyes were almost rolling up to the sky? I didn't know before, but now I realize that he's just a superficial person. Madame Song snorted coldly. As she picked the vegetables, she said, "What's so strange about that? I already said that the Wu family is not a good match. Second aunt still thinks that I'm a busybody." The two sisters-in-law also had small conflicts on a daily basis, especially after they lived together at home. They often disliked each other. However, now that they were facing a common enemy, it was obvious that they really did not welcome the visitors. Madame Zhou berated, "All right, it's rare for her to come. It's only a meal. They'll leave after eating." Madame Wei muttered softly, "She's not willing to eat at our place. If it weren't for the fact that second aunt isn't back yet, they might have gone back." Madame Zhou paused. His second aunt isn't back yet? Where did she go in such a short time? There's no family in the village that she's especially close to. She couldn't figure it out. Madame Fang didn't like to go out in the past. After Qin Yulan got married, she only came back once or twice. At most, she would stay in their house and leave in less than 4 hours. This time, she said that she would accompany Yulan to meet her friends, but Yulan was already back. Where else could Madame Fang go? Madame Zhou and the others did not know that Madame Fang, whom they had missed, was at home not far from them. Not only her, but Jiang Yongkang was also at home. At this moment, the two of them were criticizing each other without showing any weakness. Madame Fang wanted to push the blame to him. "Gu Dajiang is indeed back. You haven't made any progress for so long. It's too late to do anything now. Let's not waste time and return to town." Jiang Yongkang was so angry that he wanted to laugh. "All right, they'll go back then. Where's the money? I spent so much time and I've stayed in this lousy place in the countryside for so long that I have lost weight twice. I can't possibly not get any benefits, right?" The two of them were so engrossed in their fight that they did not notice that someone was hiding outside with a cloth bag in his hand. Chapter 544. Something must have happened. Tong Ping did not follow Madame Fang to collect the fruits today. After receiving Gu Yundong's instructions, he quietly followed behind Madame Fang. When he saw her enter the courtyard, he sneaked to the back of the house when no one was looking. The wall here was much shorter, and one of the parts had collapsed. It was accidentally pushed down by too many people on Qin Yulan's wedding day. Madame Fang didn't repair it. Anyway, she was going to live in town. Although Jiang Yongkang moved in later, this wasn't his house, so he wasn't willing to pay so much money to repair it. Anyway, this was the backyard, so it didn't affect him much. Now, the wall was convenient for Tong Ping. With a little force, he quietly climbed in. Hearing the low-pitched argument coming from the house, Tong Ping shook the cloth bag in his hand and chuckled. After a while, not only did he hear the quarrel in the house, but he also heard the sound of footsteps coming from outside the courtyard. He knew that the time had come. He opened the cloth bag and pulled out a snake. The snake was emerald green in color, slender and long, about a meter long. At this moment it was being dragged by Tong Ping, and it even wriggled a little uneasily. Tong Ping smiled. While the people inside were still talking, he stuffed the snake into the window. The snake's color was very conspicuous. Almost as soon as it appeared, the people in the room noticed it. Ah! A terrified scream sounded as expected. Tong Ping covered his mouth and laughed, but soon frowned. That's not right. Why is it a male voice? He secretly looked inside and his mouth twitched. In the room, Jiang Yongkang's face was pale. He pointed at the snake and quickly pounced into Madame Fang's arms. Cold sweat dripped down, and his lips trembled. Snake, snake, how can there be a snake? Quickly chase it away, quickly chase it away, ah ah, his terrified voice was unidentifiable as he hugged Madame Fang tightly. Madame Fang almost couldn't breathe. Compared to his scream of fear, Madame Fang was much calmer. Although she was a woman and usually did not go to the fields, she was not a lazy person. Sometimes, snakes would slither in her courtyard. She was already used to encountering snakes, insects, rats, and ants in the countryside. Although she was shocked by the sudden appearance of this snake at first, she quickly calmed down after seeing it clearly. Let go. What are you afraid of? This is an emerald green snake. It's not poisonous and is especially timid. Look, it's frightened by you. Jiang Yongkang shook his head desperately. He didn't hear what she said at all. He felt that his heart was about to jump out of his chest. He closed his eyes and didn't even look. Hurry up and chase it away. I told you that I can't stay in this countryside. I won't come to this godforsaken place again. He had lived in town since he was young. He was not afraid of encountering a rat, but he was afraid of this slippery thing. Madame Fang's eyes lit up. He was so afraid of snakes, so she could use it to threaten him to return to town quickly. She thought quickly in her heart, but she didn't know that at this moment, a few people were passing by the entrance of their courtyard and happened to hear Jiang Yongkang scream, which was so loud that it almost shook the roof. The people who were about to pass by trembled and looked at each other. One of them immediately said worriedly, "It seems to be Brother Jiang's voice. He's screaming so badly. Could something have happened? Something must have happened. Maybe a thief broke in. Let's go in and take a look." Chapter 545. Revealing the adultery. The few of them immediately became anxious and went to push open the courtyard door without saying anything. The door was pushed open. No one thought too much about it. After all, it was broad daylight, and no one locked the courtyard in the countryside. As they entered the courtyard, they heard frightened voices coming from the room on the left. Everyone became even more worried. They rushed over and pushed open the door. "Brother Jiang, why are you?" He stopped mid-sentence. Everyone at the door looked at the two people hugging each other in shock. They did not even notice the green snake slithering away through the door in fear. At this moment, Jiang Yongkang was so afraid that he even placed his legs on Madame Fang's waist. Madame Fang could not withstand his weight and fell back onto the bed. In addition, she wanted to push him away and make him let go of her. Their clothes were loose and even their breathing was messy. In everyone's eyes, these two people were doing shameless things in broad daylight. The people at the door couldn't help but gasp. Madame Fang and Jiang Yongkang were also stunned. Their faces instantly turned pale, and there was only one thought in their minds: it was over. Both sides seemed to have come to a standstill until someone's sharp voice sounded. "You, the guy from Chen Tian's family, what are you doing?" Madame Fang trembled and Jiang Yongkang finally let go of her. Hearing this question, he hurriedly explained, "You've misunderstood. There's nothing between me and sister-in-law Chen. Just now, a snake came in. I was afraid, so I lost control." "Oh, who would believe that?" Soon, a mocking voice sounded. "A snake? Where is the snake? Why didn't we see it?" Besides, even if there is a snake, it's a fact that you're in the same room. Could it be that the snake chased you into the room together? Jiang Yongkang was speechless for a moment. He explained awkwardly, we have something to discuss, so, what important matter do you have to discuss in the room alone? Tell us. Huh, what else can it be? A man and a woman in the same room. Don't tell everyone that you don't know what it is. It's a big matter of giving birth. Ha 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 ha. The two women echoed each other. Madame Fang looked at them. These two were just two gossipy women who usually didn't get along with her. Why did she have to see them? What should he say? How should he explain? Madame Fang's mind went blank for a moment, not knowing what to do. Jiang Yongkang was also so anxious that his head was covered in sweat. He couldn't say anything and could only deny it without any confidence. You've really misunderstood. We're fine. It's just that sister-in-law Fang wanted to go home to get something. Yes, she wanted to go home to get something, so we ran into each other. Later, we encountered a snake, so we became like this out of fear. However, this explanation was not convincing at all. She came back to get something? Why did she come over personally? I heard that her son-in-law came over today. She knew that there was a man living at her home, so she should let her son-in-law come over to get it. I think it's clearly the two of you meeting here privately, right? I couldn't tell, Madame Fang. Everyone thought that you had kept your chastity for your Chen Tian for so many years. I didn't expect you to have a lover long ago. No wonder Jiang Yongkang stayed at Madame Fang's house when there were so many choices. It turns out that he knew her long ago. Madame Fang's ears were buzzing and she felt a little lightheaded. She subconsciously wanted to tell the truth. No, we didn't. We were just discussing how to. They can crush us like ants. We can't have anything to do with them. Most importantly, if the Gu family's matter was brought up, she would definitely be implicated. At that time, everyone would know that she was vicious. How could the Wu family tolerate her? But Madame Fang was still hesitating. How could she admit to having a relationship with Jiang Yongkang? If she admitted it, what would happen to her in the future? However, Xiulan couldn't care less. Seeing that she didn't say anything for a long time, she simply said, my mother was indeed talking to Uncle Jiang. They were discussing their marriage. Madame Fang was stunned, and so was Jiang Yongkang. Chen Liang and the Chen family were also stunned. The surrounding villagers widened their eyes in shock. Discuss the marriage? Madame Fang wanted to deny it, but Xiulan grabbed her hand. She still said before Madame Fang could, yes, uncle. This was my idea. Then, tell them about the Gu family and see if they will kill you. Jiang Yongkang shuddered and fell silent. Madame Fang felt her entire body turn cold as she looked at her daughter in disbelief. She actually wanted to push her mother to Jiang Yongkang? Did she want her mother to be with this man? Was she crazy? However, Xiulan said in a low voice, Mother, let's get over this matter first. Madame Fang opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but she was speechless. Chen Liang secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Regardless of whether the other villagers present believed it or not, this explanation was still reasonable. He looked at Madame Fang and then at Jiang Yongkang before saying, I really don't mind sister-in-law marrying again. Since things have developed to this point, let's sit down and discuss it. The villagers were still discussing. No matter what, they looked at Madame Fang with disdain. The image of a chaste woman that Madame Fang had maintained in the village for so many years was completely shattered. Seeing that he had heard enough, Tong Ping quietly climbed over the broken wall and ran back to the Gu residence. Coupled with the fact that Chen Liang was the village chief, he still had some prestige in Yongfu village. No one dared to criticize him. However, Madame Zhou and her daughter-in-law would probably be mocked. Although Gu Yundong had a good relationship with the Chen family, she could not let Madame Fang off so easily just because of a few words. That would only make them push their luck. She was just giving them a taste of their own medicine. Wasn't Madame Fang and Jiang Yongkang a match made in heaven? As for Chen Yulan, she was anxious to clear her name, but she forgot that besides the villagers of Yongfu village, her husband was also present. In fact, Wu Chong was the one who felt most embarrassed about what had happened to Madame Fang. As Madame Fang's son-in-law, he saw his mother-in-law who was actually caught secretly meeting someone at such an old age. He felt that he had lost all his face. Therefore, the hidden danger that Chen Yulan had planted was the most fatal. Chapter 549, The End of the Fang Mother and Daughter. Keep an eye on them and see what happens next, Gu Yundong instructed Tong Ping. After listening to her analysis, Tong Ping's blood immediately boiled, and he no longer felt indignant. Sure enough, 2 days later, Tong Ping heard the latest news. Madame Fang and Jiang Yongkang were indeed together. The two of them had returned to town. The small courtyard where Madame Fang had originally lived had also been cancelled. She was now living in Jiang Yongkang's house. Because they were husband and wife halfway, Jiang Yongkang's son and daughter-in-law were very awkward and couldn't accept it. However, with another laborer at home, it was much easier. The clothes of the Jiang family were washed by Madame Fang, and even Jiang Yongkang's grandson was raised by Madame Fang. Madame Fang was petty and lazy, so she naturally had to refuse. However, Jiang Yongkang had no feelings for her. Not only did he not help her, but he was also wary of her. Madame Fang was furious. She wanted to go back to Yongfu village to seek justice from her late husband's brother, who was the village chief, but she quickly realized that she was not a member of the Chen family. She wanted to go back to her maternal family to get her brothers, but her maternal family despised her for losing face. She was already so old, but she still did such a thing. Other than her mother scolding Jiang Yongkang, no one paid attention to her. However, Jiang Yongkang had always been a scheming person. In order to hook up with Madame Yang these few months, he could be said to have a pure heart and few desires in Yongfu village. Now that he had returned to town, his original lover started going out with him again. He did not go home all day. Although Madame Fang hated him very much, since the two of them were married, he was her man. How could he flirt with women outside all day and let her be an old maid at home? Madame Fang was also ruthless. She directly told on Jiang Yongkang's lover's husband. Jiang Yongkang's affair was exposed again and he was beaten up by that man. His legs were broken, so he could only lie in bed and recuperate. He could not cause trouble anymore. He quarreled with Madame Fang at home every day and they gradually started to fight. The two of them were constantly injured and did not have a good time. As for Chen Yulan, she was treated coldly after she followed Wu Chong back to the Wu family. Wu Chong felt that if his mother-in-law could do such a thing, what about Chen Yulan, who had relied on his mother-in-law since she was young? Was she also a restless woman? Since that day, he was not very willing to touch her. Anyway, there was nothing to be afraid of in the Chen family now. He began to have no scruples when doing things. The Wu family also had an understanding of the Fang family, especially after Wu Chang's subjective depiction. The Wu family unanimously believed that Madame Fang was unruly and had embarrassed their family. If Chen Yulan had done anything wrong, the Wu family would have divorced her. They hadn't divorced yet, but Chen Yulan's life had become exceptionally difficult. Not long after, Wu Chong had another woman outside. When that woman got pregnant, she was directly brought into the Wu family and even wanted to be his equal wife. Chen Yulan made a scene because of this and even ran back to the Chen family to ask Chen Liang to stand up for her. Although Chen Liang was extremely disappointed in the mother and daughter, Chen Yulan was still his brother's daughter after all. He still went to the Wu family to reprimand Wu Chong. Wu Chong did not take Chen Liang seriously at all. He scolded him for being a busybody and even said that he wanted to divorce his wife. Xiulan was scared when she heard that. She turned around and chased Chen Liang away. Chen Liang had expected better from her and no longer cared about Xiulan. However, Wu Chong didn't mention that woman as his equal wife again. Although she was a concubine, her status was much higher than Xiulan's. Of course, this was all in the future. At this moment, Yundong only instructed Tong Ping to keep an eye on Madame Fang and her daughter. She then let go and did not care anymore. After Tong Ping left, she realized that Liu Wei and Dajiang had stopped talking. A low sigh suddenly came from behind. Chapter 551, Auntie Ku is leaving Yundong. Aunt Ku interrupted her. I'm very happy to hear you say that. It's not in vain that I've treated you sincerely. Yundong frowned and heard her continue, but I should go. Go? What do you mean? Back then, I stayed in the Gu family because you wanted to go out to look for your father and imperial physician Song. I was worried about Yunshu and Yunka, so I stayed in the Gu family to take care of them. Your father has been found, and you can also contact Imperial Physician Song. In the future, you don't have to worry about the two children when you go out. Naturally, I should go home. Yundong was caught off guard. She really did not expect Aunt Ku to say goodbye. Why should you go back? Aunt, you're alone at home. Yunshu and Kiki are here to accompany you. Besides, we've long treated you as family and plan to support you in your old age. I know. Aunt Kes' expression softened. These days, she had also treated these children as family. Although I can't bear to, Yundong, I should go back. Aunt Kes' expression was serious and her eyes were stubborn. The Gu family did not treat her as an outsider, but she had a family after all. She also had relatives. Putting everything else aside, just the fact that she still had Niet Song, her nephew, to support her in her old age meant that the Nye family would definitely bring her back without a word. If she stayed in the Gu family and let the completely unrelated Gu Yundong take care of her in her old age, what would that count for? The Nye family would be criticized. Moreover, it was also very awkward for her to continue living in the Gu family. Gu Yundong was silent. She lowered her head slightly, as if she did not want to talk to Aunt Ku. She seemed to be throwing a tantrum. Aunt Ku wanted to laugh. You're actually so childish. Alright, I know how you feel. It's not like we can't see each other in the future. The prefectural city isn't far from here. When I miss you guys, I can just come over again. My body is very strong. It won't be a problem for me to travel back and forth. Yundong pursed her lips and did not want to speak. After a long time, she wiped her face. Alright, since you've made up your mind, I'll respect your choice. However, I won't care about Kiki and Yunshu. Aunt, go convince them yourself. She was indeed black-hearted. Aunt Ku had thought that she was a little cute just now, but she immediately revealed her true colors. However, she had already dealt with Yundong. Could it be that she could not deal with Yunshu and Yunka? That night, when Yunshu returned home from school, Aunt Ku had a very deep conversation with the two children. Of course, the two of them couldn't bear to part with her, especially Kiki. At that time, I thought that if I could meet you one day and ask you for guidance on the essay, I would have no regrets in my life. I didn't expect it to be true, Gu Yundong widened her eyes. No, father, the other party is a scheming person without any integrity. He is not worthy of your admiration. Wake up quickly. Father, well, you've seen Yanshu's teacher. Shouldn't we go? Gu Dajiang didn't even turn around. No. I still have a lot to talk to you about. If you don't mind, can you treat me to a cup of tea? I don't mind. Qin Wenjing glanced at Gu Yundong and immediately agreed. Gu Yundong felt terrible. Father, where's your composure? You're already so old. Don't chase after celebrities anymore, right? Chapter 555, being a shopkeeper for 3 months suppressing his excitement, Yuanzhi's ears pricked up even more. He was getting closer and closer to Gu Yundong and Zhenggang. In the end, he simply stood behind Zhenggang and wiped the back of his chair with a cloth. Gu Yundong was speechless. Could you be more obvious? Zhenggang did not know whether to laugh or cry. He simply asked on his behalf, Boss, I'm naturally willing to go to the prefectural city. Then how should we arrange the shop here? Gu Yundong tapped her fingers on the table and glanced sideways at Yuanzhi, who had suddenly stopped nervously. She smiled and said, Uncle Zheng, do you have any suggestions? Actually, although this shop has only been open for less than a year, business has always been very good. There are many customers, and most of them are regular customers. Therefore, it's better to use a familiar person to be the shopkeeper. Yuanzhi has been here since the shop opened. He's most familiar with this place and has feelings for it. The customers like him very much. Moreover, he has been learning calligraphy and writing with me these days. He has become more and more mature and steady. He's the most suitable person. Yuanzhi looked at Zhenggang in a daze. The man's words moved him so much that his eyes turned red. He was usually very strict with her and would say that Yuanzhi was too slippery and not steady enough. Yuanzhi did not expect him to have such a high evaluation in front of his boss. Simply too evil. Gu Yundong glanced at him and smiled. Actually, I've also considered Yuanzhi as the shopkeeper. Yuanzhi's body stiffened. After these days of training, he immediately understood the meaning behind Gu Yundong's words. Has considered it? In other words, she was no longer considering it. Yuanzhi immediately felt a little disappointed and lowered his head weakly. Thinking about it, it made sense. After all, he was still young. How could he be promoted to shopkeeper after being a shop assistant for such a short period of time? However, he did not know what the new shopkeeper's personality was like. Was he easy to talk to? Was he like shopkeeper Zheng, who taught him how to read and write? Now that he thought about it, he suddenly realized that shopkeeper Zheng was really tolerant and concerned about him. He was usually a little strict with his words, but whenever there was anything delicious or useful, he would give Yuanzhi a portion. The more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. Yuanzhi felt like crying. Gu Yundong quickly added, however, after thinking about it, there's another choice. No matter what, Yuanzhi needs to think it through himself. Yuanzhi was stunned. He blinked. What did that mean? They had probably forgotten the time, right? She sighed slightly and simply turned around to go to the classroom where the students were studying. This was not the first time Gu Yundong had come to see her younger brother in class. In Qin Wenzheng's school, other than him, there was another teacher who taught books and a martial arts teacher. These two people were not old. They were the teachers that Qin Wenzheng had personally found. After all, he had a lot of things to do. It was impossible for him to personally teach these students at all times. For example, right now, the teacher was teaching the students in the academy. Gu Yundong deliberately lightened her footsteps when she went over, afraid that she would disturb their studies. Unexpectedly, when she got closer, she didn't hear any sound. The usually loud reading sound seemed to have disappeared all of a sudden. She was slightly stunned and could not help but speed up as she walked towards the classroom. Yes, there were more than 10 students. However, the teacher could not help but pick up a chess piece and throw it at him. What are you happy about? It's an unfair victory. Gu Yunshu said confidently and puffed out his chest. Then do you think that what I said just now was wrong? The teacher choked. It really seemed to be true. My elder sister said that it's my ability to fool people until they're crippled. The little guy looked very proud. Gu Yundong, no, I never said that. Don't spout nonsense. Now do you know how much you've led the children astray? Qin Wenzheng's familiar voice suddenly came from behind. Gu Yundong suddenly turned her head and saw that her father and Qin Wenzheng had arrived at some point. It seemed like they had watched the entire scene. Qin Wenzheng snorted. Come over. I have something to tell you. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.